meeting to order and the meal to order. That's not gonna work.
You're hungry.
Recording in progress.
And I just want to acknowledge that it's a long agenda. We've been off for a couple of weeks, and I'm going to try the best I can to keep us on track. Anybody feel free to participate in that. So if I cut anybody off trying to move conversations along, it's not because I'm trying to move it along or be curt. It's really just that I just want to be mindful of everybody's time and the guests that we have here. So looking at you, Mark, you're the first one. But anyway, so that's just a statement about that. But first up is a check-in with Representative Mark Mahoney, saying thanks for joining us. And look forward to hearing what the latest and greatest is. And it sounds like already deep in the throes of committee work too, so.
I'll tell you what, I'll go quickly, and then if I take less than a half hour, you can just move. Yeah, right. Okay, let me start with the federal situation.
Do tell.
Yeah.
You're working on that, right?
Well, it's affecting us. Before the shutdown, and because of the budget bill, under the budget bill, we lost about 123 million. The state did. We lost Solar for All. And the food bank, Planned Parenthood lost 1.1 million. Mental health, SNAP, all lost money. Some of that is, with Solar for All, is being litigated. We'll just have to see what happens. But of course, the big news is the shutdown. I would say we've got some really serious problems because of the shutdown. We do have 110 million bucks in the general fund that have been set aside specifically because of this. More than we usually have, and another 300 million in various reserve accounts. And the treasurer reported, I went to, there's a joint legislative fiscal committee with the chairs of the fiscal committees that meets about monthly, and I went to their last one of the more depressing meetings I've been to. We do have, the treasurer reported, we have 700 million in cash. So we're actually in a fairly strong position. We're less bonded to cover things than a lot of other states. That said, first of all, a big concern overall, everybody's worried, and I mean all the states, that the government, because in past shutdowns, when the government starts up again, everybody's reimbursed. There's absolutely no assurance that that's going to happen this time, which means that the state, when the state takes something over, it's not lending money necessarily, it's lending money to itself with the quite possibility that it really is an appropriation. And so it's a real concern. You've probably read about SNAP, 3 squares. I think that people use cards. As of Monday, they're gone. November 1. Those cards, there's a vendor, they're all controlled by the feds. The vendor's controlled by the feds. They won't work. The cards won't work. And I think you're going to see some chaos at checkout lines. And it's very hard for the states trying to figure out how to fund SNAP benefits. And I think there's a will that was expressed in that committee to do that. That's what you may have been reading, newspaper articles. All that is the legislature saying, we're going to do it. There's something called the Emergency Board, which meets periodically as well. It's the same, it's the money committee chairs only and the governor. And it has the power to act, not this legislative committee. So far it's just a bunch of wishes. But the logistics are unclear. Same with LIHEAP, the heating program. The problem with LIHEAP is it's very front-loaded. In other words, The dealer comes out, fills your tank. And that's it, for 3/4 of the season. So where you need the money, the most of the money is up front. So if we're gonna keep LIHEAP going, it's gonna have to be state funded. I think the state will step in. But
Is that easier somehow than, is LIHEAP easier to step in than SNAP?
Absolutely.
Because it's not,
It's not, it doesn't have this elaborate card-based
Yeah, okay.
system.
understood.
The fuel dealers just get a spreadsheet that shows who they're delivering to, and they do, and that spreadsheet already we are involved in, so it's not gonna be hard. The problem is, of course, that the tens of millions of dollars involved here is gonna come out of somewhere else. So it's gonna be a lousy session in terms of the budget.
Yeah, I guess that's one of my questions, is like, so that you had mentioned the 300 million in reserve funds and a total of 700 million in cash position, right? But how much of that stuff is gonna require changes in legislation or legislative action to make available for these? Because
I think we can do SNAP. I think the emergency board can do SNAP and LIHEAP. The biggest problem, however, is the subsidy for insurance premiums, health insurance premiums. That's really our biggest problem. I mean, the others are big. It's estimated that without the federal tax credit program that is currently going on, that I think we're talking about, what I heard was, believe it or not, a quadrupling of many people's insurance costs.
Is that specific to Vermont, or?
No, it's just that our insurance cards are so high, we're one of the highest anyway.
Yeah.
What that means in turn, I mean, we heard testimony, very coherent testimony from the head of, what's it called, the board that regulates Green Mountain Care Board. And the problem we've got in Vermont is that except for UVM, we've got a bunch of hospitals that are just already like cash on hand. By using cash on hand measures, they're really close to the line. They're already providing over $500 million in unreimbursed visits to emergency rooms by people who don't have insurance. And that's going to skyrocket. And I think it's going to push a bunch of hospitals over the brink. And I don't know what the solution to that is. I mean, our healthcare system already needs to be restructured. We did a lot last year in the legislature, like allowing the hospitals to negotiate with drug companies, other stuff. It bought us a year before disaster. But this is really kind of accelerates that. And the problem is I don't see any movement. Well, you can read the news just as well as I have. Our committee, the Housing Committee, is going to have a hearing on November 5th, before we're, quote, in session, on the federal situation as to housing. And we're going to have people from our congressional delegation, as well as the state and nonprofits. And I may know more, but that's all I know right now about the federal situation. I think LIHEAP and SNAP are all going to hit within the next 3 weeks. And I think the insurance thing is just going to be a mess. I think we're just going to see most people in Vermont go uninsured. I just do want to mention something. Last time I came, you guys expressed particularly interest in inter-town collaboration. I've met with the league, and I'm willing to work on legislation on that. But I sent you one thing, I'm going to need a little input. Without getting into the detail tonight, what we have in the state government is this weird dichotomy where there's sort of two ways to collaborate. One called union districts are very elaborate. They take a study committee, and then it's just a long process to set up, a long process to get in. And then there are these intertown contract provisions, which are just like 2 paragraphs that say, yeah, you want to execute a contract with another town, go ahead. The problem that I've heard is there's nothing kind of in between. In other words, there's nothing that allows for a little more formality. I'll give you 2 examples. If you want to contract with another town to buy an object, you can't have a situation where either town can just walk away because it doesn't feel like it anymore, because you got payments to make. So it requires more formality. Question is, how much of an it is there? In the union districts, there's really a new governmental entity that you're creating. With the inter-contract, there's nothing. It's just 2 towns saying, shaking their hands, usually being able to walk away on 30 days' notice. The problem is, if you really want to do something serious, you might want to enter into a contract that you can't walk away from that quick, for either services or for anything, any piece of equipment. But I'll be looking to you guys, and let me tell you this time frame, this month, I mean the next 30 days, before Thanksgiving, we should know what we think. The reason is, the deadline for requesting a bill from Legislative Council is December 1st. But on December 1st, everybody and his mother is going to be requesting bills. And I don't want to wait that long, because then our bill won't actually pop out until way into the session, and it'll get delayed. I'm perfectly willing to sponsor such a bill. The league is all over it. They'll help. I've asked them for it, a bullet list, what you want to put in it. But you guys should email me or call me, and we should know if we want to do anything in 30 days.
Yeah, I just very quick anecdotal feedback to that point. I think that resonates pretty well with some dialogue that was being had in one of the breakout sessions during town fair that was put on by the league a couple of weeks ago that I went to with Kari and Tegan and Christy. Is that it? Jared from the Planning Commission, Jared Weiss. But I sat in one that had to do specifically about capital planning, and a lot of that had a lot to do with municipalities that already had more services and were trying to stand up or upgrade infrastructure projects or something like that. But I raised the point about capital planning for the more rural communities on a more regional level, and seeing if we could exercise collective buying power, and if there is an agreed upon structure for capital planning that is templated by something like the league, and these municipalities participate in managing their capital plan relative to that then gives them access to preferred buying or financing through something. Interestingly, that session was also being led by co-led or participated on with the executive director of VT Bonding, and there's
Michael
a lot.
Gahn. Michael Gahn is brilliant.
Yeah. So
sometimes I don't understand him.
Yeah, we got out of my depth real fast, but I had a couple of conversations with him.
Okay.
And he's also.
I will call him. He and I talk to each other a good bit, and I'll definitely consult with him.
It sounds like he is seeing the opportunity in infrastructure, collective buying, that sort of thing. But that would require, I imagine, a legislative change before the bonding can participate in assistance for that. So yeah, that would be my next most immediate step.
Okay.
That conversation.
This joint purchasing, I think, is probably going to be the most fruitful in the near term.
Right.
And
Well,
I really don't know what's needed on the legislative level.
Okay, well, let's make sure, You see, there's this big concern over like, how do we govern Vermont in the future?
Mhm.
And there was a study committee. But the guy who created the study committee and was heading it wasn't reelected.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm not sure anything's happening. And my feeling is, with the legislature and my vast experience of 3 years there, is go small.
Mhm.
You know, just try to, so I'm looking at what can we do to tinker with that section I sent to you
Yeah.
that just gives us a little more.
I think that the short term is the cooperative buying
Yeah.
relative to participating in capital planning.
Yeah,
And that's more, that really aligns with the contract type structures. But then medium to long term, the union districts do make a lot of sense, but I personally would be hesitant to want to drive too much of those conversations in parallel. Like, I think one needs to move faster than the other one, but then the other one comes behind
I
for
agree.
like the emergency services and some of the other stuff that would be better served by union districts, but would require more complicated infrastructure and agreements and commitments. But anyway, let's pick up the rest of that.
Okay.
And separately, I'm happy to give you a call, we can chat through some more of
okay,
that.
great.
A few
But our
months,
time frame is like
Yeah,
this,
Right, well.
1 month,
yeah,
Got it.
okay?
yeah.
a few months ago, the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission put out a template for towns to use for MOUs.
Mm.
I would have to, I don't know if it goes to you guys at all,
Yeah, it
but
came
I
through
got
here. This was for the emergency
I-
response stuff.
It's, well, I'd have to go back and read it, but I'm pretty sure it was for towns to use for any MOU they wanted to create with other towns. I don't know if there's anything out of that that could be pulled for this project, to make some of it possibly a little easier.
This was the Central Vermont. episode.
Correct. Yeah.
Housing. Why don't I just do that really quickly?
Yeah,
Obviously, okay, everybody knows it's a huge problem, no matter who you talk to. It's like at the base of everything, the housing problem. Our biggest problem, which is very frustrating, it's very frustrating to confront a problem where there aren't obvious solutions. I mean, like, who likes that? But the problem is the market's broken, the free market's broken. That is, you can get, outside of Chittenden County, you can literally give a developer a piece of land and say, build, and they won't. Either because they're booked, or because they can't sell the product for under $500,000 or $600,000, and nobody can afford $500,000 or $600,000. And so that's, if you want to build houses for forget about whether it's workforce, affordable, low and moderate, you can name it what you want. But if you want to build housing that teachers and carpenters and mental health workers and, can afford, no, the market doesn't do it. So the obvious answer is subsidy, and our problem is that we don't have a lot of money right now, and we're going to have less because of the federal walkaway. There have, for some reason, one of the biggest sources of affordable housing money, Section 8, for construction of affordable housing, has survived and done fine, and that's the tax, the tax credit money, so that's okay. This term, we're gonna try, I've got like half a dozen things I'm working on. How far we'll get depends on whether I can get bipartisan consensus. It makes no sense in today's legislature for me to even vote anything out of our committee that is not bipartisan. If I vote something out of our committee where my vice chair is this wonderful Republican, if Ashley is unhappy with it, the Republican side of the table is going to be unhappy with it. We can vote it out because we have more Democrats, but for what? All it does is create a divided vote on the floor, which means the governor will veto it. So I need bipartisanship, and the question is, can we get there? The issues that we're looking at are landlord-tenant. I think that might start in the Senate. My my parallel person in the Senate is Allison Clarkson, and she's great. And we've worked together for years. We know each other personally. But the problem with landlord-tenant is finding a combination of a balanced bill. I could write a balanced bill tomorrow, but I'm afraid everybody would oppose it. So we'll see. But I hope we can do something, because the current situation is terrible for landlords and terrible for tenants. There's just nothing good about it. So when that happens, you would think, wouldn't you, that compromise is possible. So we'll see. We're working on dilapidated and abandoned homes. There's quite a few in Vermont. There are some people that think if we could just do that, we'd solve the housing problem. No, but when you have a problem that's so intractable, you just nibble at it. You try pieces. So one of the ways to deal with that is I would like to, and I would like legislation on that subject that would allow, right now, if you want to have a tax sale on an abandoned home, it takes a long time, and it's very complicated. And that's generally as a consumer protection matter. We don't want to throw someone out of their home because they had something bad happen. They lost their job, or they had an illness, etc. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about homes that have been abandoned for a long time. It may be an out-of-state owner that's just not paying taxes. There's a lot of that. So what I want to do is make it much easier and much quicker for towns to have tax sales for those kinds of things. Short-term rentals, a subject of no controversy whatsoever.
Can I, before we
Yeah, go ahead.
before we do
Yeah.
that one, I'm sure I have opinions on all of them, but and please feel free to correct any of this as mischaracterization. But from my perspective and experience with the topic, it's such a huge problem, right? And so it inherently warrants
Which of the
I'm sorry, just the inventory issue, right?
Yeah.
And how to just create more of it.
how to
right?
create more housing, yeah.
That it focuses a lot of dialogue around big solutions, and I think that not only do those draw a lot of attention from both sides of any argument, but and a large degree of scrutiny, but I wonder if the resources that we commit to subsidizing or some of these projects can have tighter, for lack of better phrasing, control over what size project they go to, so that not all of the funds are being sucked into really big projects that are only moving the needle so much. And not to knock the project that was completed in South Burlington, but that only added 55 units for $55 million. Was that about right? Or is it?
It's not $1 million a unit, but it's very expensive.
Yeah, it wasn't. But I think that that's such a finite fix in one area, and part of that is such a big project that it's always going to have a great deal of scrutiny and resistance, and it took a long time to go through. And I wonder, for a period of time, if there's a more collective focus on doling out those resources to the ADUs, to the price per square foot for any of these units isn't significantly different, whether it's small, big, or multi-house, multi-unit, et cetera, et cetera. The economies are so out of whack that there's almost no incentive for a professional developer of that scale to get involved, unless it's the perfect situation.
There's a lot of pressure to build smaller units
Yeah.
right now. If that's that's one of the things you're talking about. Partly because a lot of people in Vermont who are older
Yeah.
really would like to get out of their house,
Yeah.
but they don't have any place to move.
Yeah.
So there's that. There's a lot of thinking about that.
Okay.
But one of the things we're working on is, I'm working on, and I don't know how far I'll get, is ways to subsidize and ways to encourage the financing of smaller projects,
Yeah,
like 10 units and less in rural areas. So you're not only, the problem with tax increment financing is that it's very complicated in Vermont. And we passed this bill called CHIPS last
Right.
time. It's still complicated.
Yes.
In other words, no tiny town, nobody with 10 units is going to use CHIPS. But I'm wondering whether we can do something like what's called tax stabilization, where essentially you say to a developer under certain circumstances, you're not going to pay any more taxes than you do now for, say, 8 years.
yeah,
It's just a way of injecting money.
yeah,
Yeah, if I can get that, I just don't know if that's going to pass. We'll see.
yeah.
But we're also going to look at finding ways to make it easier to do assessment districts. Vermont is a real outlier with assessment districts. You know, around the United States, a lot of development, you know, somebody who owns 10 acres and wants to put in 15 houses will use an assessment district to pay for the extension of utilities, or let's say a small playground or something like that. And the only people who vote on it, when it's bonded, the only people who vote on it are the people who are going to pay the assessment. Or in some states, like California, nobody votes on it. If there's a protest, it simply means that a supermajority of the city council has to override the protest. Here, the whole town votes on it. And so I'm gonna try to see if I can change that and make it simpler. Little things like that. I mean, most of my agenda isn't, I'm working on manufactured homes, by that better known as mobile homes. I'm not talking about Huntington homes.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not talking about prefabricated
Yeah.
homes. This is important. Huntington homes is great, prefabricated homes, but they cost just as much as the other homes.
Right.
It's just they're faster, and the workforce can work indoors all year, so they don't age as fast. But the manufactured homes are like double wides or single wides or things like that, and those homes, you can get a home planted for $200,000. Well, that is affordable. It's almost the only market affordable housing in Vermont. Yet we tax it twice. When you buy the mobile home, you pay property taxes, sales tax. Then, when it's planted, you pay property taxes. And there are other barriers, so we're taking a real hard look. I'm meeting with bankers. There's only 2 banks in Vermont that really will finance it. And some people end up getting consumer loans to finance it because a bank won't consider it real property. You know, it's really a messed up area. And so we're trying to kind of regularize it, et cetera.
This might be beyond, the state's ability to fix, but I know when we bought our duplex, we wanted a fixer-upper, and duplex sounds great if it's a fixer-upper because you can rent it
Yeah.
out, and it was rented. And, we got pre-approval, went through the whole thing, and finances, and were pre-approved for something that far exceeded our means. But as soon as we went to buy a duplex, we had to come up with a 40% down payment.
Because it was commercial.
Because it was commercial. And we talked to multiple lenders locally, and we had to go out of state for our initial mortgage to get more favorable terms to buy a duplex. And as a young couple trying to build equity, why wouldn't you want to buy something that already has a proven income generating capacity?
I couldn't imagine, except banks are very by the rote.
Sure.
However, we're talking to bankers.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. I'll bring that up. We're going to get the whole issue of speeding up appeals on projects there's somebody opposing them. Right now, they take a ridiculous amount of time. Again, Vermont is an outlier. So that's kind of a quick and dirty of the housing. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm 7 minutes early.
Thank you, Mark, so much.
Happy to work with you.
That was a great summary. Glad it's on time. and
Can I just quickly
Yeah.
ask about the short-term rentals?
Yeah.
I don't think you finished
Oh,
your
yeah.
thought on what you're, just,
Well, I'll tell you, I don't even know what I think I'm going to, I know it's a problem. Some people say it isn't, that the kind of, I think it may be a problem where, like, the barn door was open and the cows are out. Because there is some evidence that it's leveled off. How much of that is really leveling off? And how much of that is because the Canadians are not coming here? I don't know. The problem, very simply, is it's just different in every town. Some towns, like, let's say, there's one bill on my wall, that is a bill we could take up. It says, it's a very interesting bill. It says, here's the rule, 1 unit per lot. And you have to, the owner has to live on the premises. Okay, that sounds, but you can opt out, any town can opt out. But the problem with that is, some places it doesn't do any good at all, like Stowe. Stowe, 75% of the units in Stowe that are short-term, they're just vacation homes. Those homes are never going to be occupied, no matter what. The question is, will they be filled up with renters or empty during the off-season, when the owners aren't there? Well, the businesses in Stowe, they don't want to see them empty, they want to see them there. There's other towns that really don't want any more short-term rentals. So the question, there is, as you may know, I think you've all got notice, next Saturday a week, there's an all-day short-term rental conference. I'm going. I'm not going to wade into this. I couldn't conceivably get bipartisan agreement until I know a lot more.
Well, again, I think your perspective on that is well informed and right on. And I guess I would add to that, like, we again have a duplex, and I'll put it all out on the sleeves here. But one of the units in that duplex is currently an Airbnb, and the reason we're doing it is because it's a 130-year-old house that we bought that needs about $20,000 worth of work every year to bring it up to more energy efficient standards, and that affords us the flexibility to put money and capital back into that. We have a medium-term plan to put that unit back on the market for sure for a long-term rental. But right now, because of the market constraints relative to everything, relative to everything else, like with building new units, et cetera, that affords us the ability as not professional developers to try to improve a unit that can then be put back on the market. So, I think there is a really good Vermont Public kind of town hall on the subject a year and a half ago, where there was some really in-depth journalism done, and it reframed things a little bit. I think that both parties are right, and it has to do with how unique it is and what the circumstances are in that area. It's not okay for a condo to be stuffed full of people in ski season when that's exceeding all of its safety and wastewater permitting that it was designed for. But, it's also an economy driver for in other circumstances, right? And so I think it's easy to kind of characterize that particular topic as like this terrible thing that's draining our issue. But at the end of the day, I think the argument just keeps coming down to, we just need more housing. Or if we want those tourists, we need more hotels. We just need more development activity. And until we can kind of correct those, from my perspective, I don't see how the rest of, we can argue about all the rest of it all we want, and try to characterize it however we want, and we're still not going to solve the core problem. I guess maybe I'll be...
There's a state program that provides up to $70,000 a unit for landlords to rehab a unit. But it does mean, there's two different versions
Yeah.
of it. It does mean income restrictions.
Yep.
But the math with a $50,000 or $70,000 loan, math might work for you.
It might, yeah, thank you. We
Do you know
generally
that
try to
program?
keep,
Yeah.
we try to keep tabs on those types of things, but we generally find,
Okay.
but relative to our finances and our situation, like, that's too much of an incremental fix, or it requires capital on our side or constraints on the other side about who can then use it
There
for
are
a period of
constraints.
time.
There's a 5-year program and a 10-year program,
Yeah.
but there are constraints, but it's 70K,
Mhm.
including 20 for accessibility.
Auxiliary building?
What?
Excessive or auxiliary building? 20K for auxiliary?
No, no, no,
Oh,
no,
accessible.
accessibility.
Oh, accessible.
You know, like wheelchair ramps and all
Yeah,
that. Rehab bathrooms,
Yeah.
bars.
Anyway. My 10 cents on that.
Thank you, everybody.
$3.
Thank you
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks.
Hang in
for
there.
your full-time job that you do.
Yeah.
Failed it there.
Well, we're 3 minutes over and I'll own all of that. So what we've got, our next block of time is for fiscal year 2027 budget meetings that we've been kind of chipping away at. And first on the list is Kellogg Hubbard Library. So but you guys up. Yeah, if you'd like. Small group, we can probably hear you from there.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. I'm Dan Groberg. I'm the executive director of the Calais Public Library. I'm joined by Jeff Dean, who's our Calais board member and vice president of the board. Yeah, so thanks so much for having us. It's been a really busy and productive year at the library. I don't know if anyone's been to the library recently, but there's been a lot going on. Wrapped up our $2.5 million building project post flood and adding a whole new HVAC system to the building without using any municipal funds. So we're really proud of that and all the improvements we've done to the building. But we've also been doing a lot of programs. We had 14,000 people come to programs that we offered last year. And we still see about 500 people come through the doors every day. So 150,000 people a year. We're, depending on the count, either the second or third busiest library in Vermont. Our circulation has been really strong, and we've done a lot to enhance our digital circulation and catalog as well. And our digital circulation was up a third this year over last year, which I really see as evidence of the improvements that we've made to our offerings and our new catalog that makes it easier to find things. So I'll keep it pretty short because you can show our friends in the library and know a lot about the library. We're asking for a 3% increase over last year, and that's pretty much just to keep up with inflation. We've been, growing our fundraising, growing our endowment, and really trying to leverage the municipal funds with other funds to stretch your dollars. And we ask Montpelier taxpayers for about 3 times more per capita as we ask in Calais, because we recognize obviously that, Montpelier is right there where we're located. And but we also continue to try and do more out in our towns. We had a story walk and some story times out here. I should say this says that we have a little free library at Maple Corner, but it's coming soon. Weather stopped us from doing it a week or 2 ago. But stocking books out here and trying to make it, our goal is to make it as easy as possible for everyone to access the library and our services. So I'll just stop there, and Jeff, feel free to add anything about your experience with the library, but I think you're all fairly familiar with the library, so feel free to ask any questions and I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, it's been great. Calais actually has more people visiting now than we had before, so it's nice to see that increase. And anybody who hasn't been to the library lately should definitely check it out because there've been a lot of really excellent changes in terms of just the physical structure of the building. Downstairs is beautiful. Is the skylight now? Oh, yeah. New paint jobs and, but as Dan said, there's a lot of use outside the library as well in terms of digital use and other people accessing. So, yeah, it's a busy place.
You were successful in getting all your mechanicals upstairs?
We moved all the mechanicals upstairs except for our heating system, which is now in a flood-proof room.
So you're flooded.
The flood door was delivered finally, after being on back order for a long time, so, yeah. Yeah, the number of patrons, active patrons from Calais increased by 50 since the last time I was here.
Well, I think it's such an important community resource that, and thank you, both for, and everybody involved for making it such a great resource for the community and, you know, anybody with young kids who basically relies on it for childcare. You know, I wish that was even easier for the Calais community, but what a cool, safe place for kids to explore. Certainly, our daughter spent tons of time there and loves all the crafts. It's a really diverse place to learn and engage. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good year to support libraries.
Good year to support libraries. Every year is a good year to support libraries from my perspective. And I guess so the primary pushers, like cost pressures for you guys in the budgeting process, I assume are mostly workforce related and
Yeah.
insurance and et cetera.
Yes, yeah, health insurance is always a big driver.
Yeah.
And then we've just agreed in principle to a new 3-year collective bargaining agreement with our staff. And some of that's reflected here. We want to make sure that our staff is paid livable wages. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for keeping it to 3%. They were hard to get to there. So.
No, absolutely, yeah. And I always like to say, you know, our total budget is $1.2 million, and Calais taxpayers are getting access to that for 36, you know, just shy of $36,000. So I think it's really good.
Well, I know the last
that we're trying to offer.
couple of years, you do a great job breaking that down in this meeting, which is, you know, the whole point of getting to it now. And then in the last couple of years, we've seen some more vocal opposition to why and how much and et cetera, which, you know, is everybody's right. But, you know, I think, I don't know, Jeff, I'd love to have those numbers like on hand so that, you know, we can be in the vocal opponent when it comes time. You know, this would be a good forum for having that discussion instead of getting folks riled up, I think, at town meeting. But that's the structure that we have. It's not wrong. Everybody has a right to it, but it's always going to get talked about and having some key talking points, I think, about like the per capita expense and use, like that helps, I think, kind of quiet that down a little bit, or at least emphasizes the value for our community on town meeting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I won't remember that, Jeff, but
I think it's also really notable that, you know, you're not able to break out the usage digitally for the towns, but there's such a huge usage digitally.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we were this, you know, I mean, we're obviously Calais is part of that. So the numbers are pretty self-explanatory for people who believe in the value of this. Yeah, the question is continuing to convince others.
we'll keep trying to save money in other places, so maybe that's not so much of a pressure for you, but I don't know how successful we'll be. Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Will you have a board of these? Like,
I can definitely.
I mean, I'm sure they're expensive.
I can definitely bring more to, wherever it's helpful.
I'm just thinking this kind of thing is nice. I mean, we might have a meeting.
Certainly can bring.
Do you have a digital version?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay, great.
Oh, and you're about, I'll send it together.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll send it off.
Yeah, we put the link in the town report. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, thank you.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a board member.
Yeah, no question. See you later.
All right, take care.
Jared, hey. Planning commission tonight. How are you doing?
Hi, Jared.
Oh, it's been all day at Howard Park, so.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Did you lose any kids?
We did not this time.
That's great.
Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to say this thing. No, they all returned.
Such chairs. I'm sure they were.
Yeah.
Planning commission budget requests. What do you got?
So far, it's just, we hold pat, we just are where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need any more, we don't need, like, we have what we have. We're still focused in one place.
Yeah, you know what you're doing.
We know what we're doing.
So the budget for the planning commission does have a reserve fund part, right? And you want to add to the same amount that we had in the past to build up the reserve fund, that's the plan, right?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Correct, that's for, in the future, using for municipal planning.
Okay,
I know grants exist, but to also have money
Yeah.
to have CVRPC come in and help us with planning. Especially town planning.
It seems like whenever there is even a hint of planning involved, CVRPC is pretty quick, or anybody who knows of that planning grant is quick to say, there's this grant. So it seems like a very competitive space, and
It is
money
very
is pretty
yes.
competitively sought. So, I think the seed funding, I think for a grant like that, I can imagine that we may at some point want to, I don't know, cap it maybe.
Possible, yeah.
But so that folks don't feel like it's a perpetual earmark, I guess. But I think also coordinating on the local level about who, what year might try to apply for that, so that we're not competing within the community for that same grant and the same, and the same, yes.
No, I think you raise a really good point. We could, I mean, once we know when this town plan is done and final, that we know what that timeline looks like, then that's when you start doing that, right?
Yeah,
To be able to pull back some of that to know, because, well, we've got so much and we know it's not for 8 more years or 6 more years. We know how, we can plan for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mark our calendars.
Right, mark our calendar.
Well, I didn't have any other questions. I guess it was all pretty straightforward, and appreciate trying to keep things, level.
Yeah.
With last year, as best as possible.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Jared about the funding request?
I'm just
Funding request.
curious if you could refresh my recollection on the, how the timing, what the anticipated timing is for our.
Yeah, so next week we have our first big collaborative meeting with Conservation Commission.
Okay,
We have our own planning commission draft of the section,
okay,
and we are having, it's gonna be a collaborative effort with them and us and some other people sitting down, and we're really trying to get to priorities. Like, that's the main thing, is like, what do we need to have in it? If we can get through it in 2 meetings, which is our hope, we could have that draft in January. Which then, if we're able to be at that, I don't think we can get to town meeting, but right soon after that. And and that's again, going through that sort of 30-day period and a 15-day period, right? All the timeline, but I'm, by the end of March, I think we'll be done. Yay. Yay. I have to say, we've had a really good working collaborative relationship with with the Conservation Commission. And a lot of good conversation coming out of it. And I'm happy to work with them. They've done a lot of work, and we're going to keep working on it. And we've got a real collaborative approach that we're using to sort of get to these priorities. And, you know, as we said at one meeting, they can't all be priorities. When you have Mark sitting in here and some of those things, right, when it comes to housing, it can't be everything. We have to prioritize. We have to figure out, you know, we all will protect everything if we could. It's not necessarily possible. So we have to figure out the right way to do that. Melanie said it best in one meeting, and I've now said it to everyone I can say it was so perfect. She said, we have to make the right thing the easy thing. Right? And it was like, yes, that's exactly what we need to do. So when we get to this sort of conservation versus housing kind of issue, is what is it we want to see happen? Let's make that the thing that's easy to do. But we have to start with priorities. And so that's where we are. But long answer to your question, Christy, would be, yeah, I would think by end of March, we could be done with this.
Thank you.
So that raises two questions for me. One is, have you thought about how the select board can give you feedback specifically on this tension that you're trying to resolve between planning and or housing and conservation, to the extent there is tension, but
Right,
historically has been.
right.
And I wouldn't want the select board to be just presented with, well, here you go, here's the final draft. So think about that, but and also does the planning commission have an opinion about whether this next version of the plan should be voted on by the public or just the select board? I know that's kind of the select board call, but.
Yeah, we've talked about it. There's been the idea that since the one that is now current was sort of put by, you know, approved by select board.
Right, because it was so similar to the version that had just been approved.
Correct. So there was questions, does that mean that we just go ahead with the same process, or do we have a vote? We were trying to see if we could get it by town meeting. Just because everybody would be together, it would be an easy way to do that. I just don't know. I just don't know that time. That 45-day, right, warning period is that's a long amount of time. And then to have us have a meeting and select board have a meeting all before town meeting just doesn't seem possible. But I think there is some desire to maybe go to the community.
Yes, I think the select board would value the planning commission's opinion on that. And it probably depends on how
Correct.
significant the changes are in that conservation.
Correct. And right now, we're really talking conservation, the natural environment section. There's some changes to make to energy, but that's basically numbers and some data. But it's really just this one section, and I will send an invite to you all, right? Like for these, like we welcome you to be there for those meetings too, the ones where we're sort of collaborating with the Conservation Commission to see how best we can do that. I mean, again, just like we did before, maybe getting ahead of some of it and having you all involved in some way helps us just get there quicker. And ease some of that tension. Tension's gonna exist. It doesn't necessarily have to be negative tension,
Right.
It's just, the two things are somewhat, especially housing, and they are kind of at odds sometimes with each other. That tension is just natural, but
Sure.
we just gotta figure out how to make it work for everybody. But we could talk more about it and see as a planning commission what we think and let you guys know that. I think that is some, we need to put some thought into that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jared.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jared.
Yeah. Cool.
When is the meeting next week?
Tuesday night,
Okay, thank you.
7:00.
And thank you for the informational, organizing the informational, future land.
Oh,
use
yeah,
meeting. That was
the future land use maps. Yeah, it was interesting.
Good dialogue, future.
Yeah.
Just trying to feel.
It was good, and it's just not a lot that really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to feel like it's kind of a nothing sandwich compared to like some of the conversations that are being had at the like the legislative level. Again, it's like it's a solution again that is relative to a very specific region of, or very specific regions of the state. And we
Still, I
need,
think knowing about it, I mean,
Definitely.
I mean, and just when the maps do come out, that's when
it does.
we
yeah.
will all need to be able to answer the questions of what does it?
What does
Well,
that mean?
to-
You know, to the extent we can. I'm not saying that we can
Well,
represent every bit of it.
I think that there is a real, it sounded like if I was interpreting the message, like there's an acknowledgement from, that is in fact true, that currently a lot of the focus on how they're being structured and the incentives around them are focused on very specific regions, and not so much the other communities, but there'll be a, period of kind of scoping for feedback, from the rural communities. And I think that is going to be an opportunity for all of us to be very vocal about what we want these things to reflect, or just to be self-advocates, I think, for how we might want to see the program modified, even if they're saying that's going to be a hard row.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity to.
But I think you're right, just understanding that, knowing what it all means, because then people will have questions.
Definitely.
And we don't want to just have to go, well, that doesn't really matter to us. Right, we want to say, no,
Not that.
Yeah, I mean,
Not that it doesn't matter. Right.
People will have questions.
Yeah.
I think what it told me though too, is that there is a space for us as planning commission to have some of these types of groups and information things just presented,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just some different thing, like, I don't know what it is, it's how is it, right? Like, just
Yeah.
different things being brought to the commission, just to say, here's what's going on.
Yes.
And here are these things. I think I think we've just been so tunneled by town plan that we haven't, and I think there is space for that, because I think that was actually really well received, and it was like, this is good, okay. I appreciated hearing that. So I think if we can start to do more of that, I think that'll be really helpful too.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Haven't been home yet. Good night.
Thanks, Jared.
Animal control officer is next.
So Buffy wasn't
Yeah.
sure she would make it tonight. I can speak for this item since we worked together on it. So we're proposing a modest increase in her wages, $150 a year. But decreases in the dog expenses and animal control expenses. Dog expenses, the one consistent item in that is the tags that we issue for dog licenses, and then animal control expenses has been dominated by horses, and that's hopefully out of our lives. So I think we can see a nice decrease in that. So the total is a decrease in budget over budget from 2,400 to 1,950.
Oh. Yeah.
I want to say that I really appreciate Buffy. She's been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so great.
She cares. That's the big thing.
Exactly. And follow through.
Yeah.
Regularly, so.
I really appreciate the kind of approach that she takes to working with community members when there are issues.
Yeah.
It's really a great report. I'm a little uncomfortable with reducing the animal control expenses portion of that. It's so much, but especially as like we've had more expenses come up that kind of draw from the general fund.
It'd be interesting to look back historically.
Yeah.
Was there much before the horses?
What
I don't
does
know.
that mean, other than, is it boarding?
It was boarding and veterinary was all of those 4 horses, at least in the years I.
Well, and the big one was a really late veterinary expense that came with at the very end. So I think we had budgeted very, significant reduction because we didn't think that there were going to be too many more coming in, and then there was
Fiscal 24 was the big year.
And then there was some veterinary expenses that we thought were appropriate for the town to pay for, given circumstances, so.
Basically banking on having only the dog or two.
Yeah, I mean, if you think there's a more appropriate number, I'm sure we're open to it. Although Buffy actually wanted to drive these numbers down even further. Her goal is to not have expenses.
Okay.
But I'm, and see George's point, we gotta have something.
This is.
Yeah.
right,
See a savings, it's
Yeah.
managing expectations,
Right.
A little
but
bit.
also protecting ourselves.
Mhm.
And the 350 obviously would cover what we actually did in 25
Yes,
for the dogs, you said that was mostly tags.
Yep.
Okay, I'm fine with it. I appreciate Buffy's expertise and your input, and I really support increasing her. 150 seems kind of minimal.
I thought so too, on a percentage basis, it was reasonable.
Okay.
I would hope that we would do it again next year or something like that.
Has she, do you know if she like tracks her hours at all?
I haven't asked her about that, I can ask her.
That'd be-
My sense is it varies tremendously.
Well, I think that the last year-ish, you know, with a handful of dog-related things and
Yeah.
follow-ups, like
Yeah,
maybe that represents somewhat of an average year. And it'd just be good to kind of get a baseline as we're just starting to think about our other projects being like legacy transition planning, that sort of thing, just documentation of what these commitments are. That'd be helpful, I think. Anyway, but yeah. Otherwise, let's go with the 1950 if nobody else is concerned.
great.
Thank you.
Swim committee. We don't have any swim committee members. I think there's a bit in the memo about that. Was that
We've
right?
not heard from you.
See anything? Yeah, the swim committee's gotten 4 emails over the last 2 months about their budget was due on Friday.
Yeah.
And being presented tonight, and nobody has ever responded to any of those emails.
Good.
That's fine.
Kari's been copied on all of them, he's seen all those times that they've been notified. So I don't know what.
We're pretty certain Daniel will be here our next meeting because he invited himself as a select board, school board, yeah. So we'll take that opportunity to schedule a swim committee.
Yeah, or, you know, I guess, you know, that we take a look at what the funding level was last year, though. I think that we had agreed to increasing it a little bit for particular balancing of their budget. But anyway, I would say if we hear nothing, it's either flat or open for reduction, but whatever. Let's leave it at flat, I guess, for last year. Try to pin Daniel down next week. Or anybody else from the swim committee? Emergency management, James.
Well, I'm glad that everybody else's budget had like little to no increase, because mine has a substantial increase. Yeah, we went from last year's request of like 2,500-ish to, I think I heard Kari corrected my math because I forgot some stuff. We're at just under 14,000. But just to make sure that everybody is clear, the large portion of that is $11,000 for Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission to update the town's local hazard mitigation plan.
Right.
Which has to be renewed every 5 years if we want to qualify for FEMA funding in the future. There was a lot of debate on the committee on whether or not we should request this money due to the state of FEMA and the federal government in general. Ultimately, we decided that it would be smart to put this money in for 2 reasons. One, you guys requested us to put it in. And 2, it buys us 5 years before we have to figure out if we have to update again in 5 years because FEMA still exists, then we'll be able to figure out the funding aspect over 5 years, or we're set for 5 years. If there's any issues and FEMA funding is still available, we'll qualify. However, Diddler from Keith Coburn, probably pronouncing his last name wrong, that there is a grant that we can apply for, which is also on the agenda tonight. It does have a 10% match if we got it. So instead of paying the planning commission $11,000, we'd have to pay them $1,000. But as we discussed just a moment ago with Jared, those are extremely competitive grants. So hopefully we'll be able to get it, but no guarantee. As for expenses, we're only asking for about $15 more than we did last year. And our wish list on our budget didn't change last year, if I remember correctly.
I just noted that you moved the tower air conditioner up to actually being in the budget as opposed to just being on the wish
Correct.
list. So you're taking, I think that's a
Yeah.
good thing. Yeah.
So
Take one thing up every year,
Yeah.
maybe.
So that's kind of my point of view. I obviously prior to having to put $1,000 in our budget,
Yeah.
I did have the intention of raising our budget a bit more so we could move some more things. We all decided that the air conditioner should be a priority because there was consideration for opening a cooling shelter this summer. However, none of our shelters have air conditioning.
Mhm.
And neither does East Montpelier. I called them and they're like, we don't really have the ability to have a cooling shelter. So now we will.
So do I understand if somehow we're unsuccessful with the grant, then does that cost go away? Or does the what have to happen?
So regardless, in talking with Kari, we had already decided that, well, actually it was the whole select board, that we would have the regional planning commission work on the town's local hazard mitigation plan, which their price for that they gave me was about $11,000 approximately. They said the closest one they did was right under that.
Right.
So if we don't get the grant up, then we owe.
Then we already have, okay, I just needed a reminder, okay.
Do you know what, if we go ahead and apply for the grant, you know, when we would hear back?
Keith did not get back to me on that question.
There's a chance we could get the grant and pull this out of the budget in time,
Theoretically,
mid-January?
I'm really hoping so.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
When does the plan expire?
October 26th.
Okay. Good time to be doing.
Yeah, so the regional planning commission told me that at the absolute minimum, they had to have our plan by spring or start it in spring. So my thought process was, okay, the sooner we can get it in their hands, the better. But obviously, then the original funding disappeared.
What happens if we don't have a plan?
We don't qualify for FEMA funding, disaster funding. If
Really?
So FEMA and the Vermont Emergency Management require towns to have two plans in place. The local emergency management plan, which outlines where our shelters are, who's in charge of them, who's on your emergency management committee. If you have a committee, a lot of towns only have a director. And then outline some resources that you guys have available or a town has available to them to use in the event of an emergency. That gets submitted, Vermont Emergency Management has to accept it, and so does FEMA. The other one, and that one has to be renewed every year. We do that ourselves. There's no cost associated. And then every 5 years, we have to do the local hazard mitigation plan, which is a much more legally binding document. There's a lot of information in that is from a legal standpoint, so we have to have an attorney fill in a lot of the information. There's a lot of demographics there, and just information about the generalized town. It's an extremely long document.
Okay.
And if you don't have that done every 5 years, you don't have the ability to get FEMA funding,
Hmm.
for reimbursements from disasters, so
We don't have one now. This is
we do.
we do.
We're just coming up on our renewal cycle.
Yeah. Okay. Seems annoying that that's $11,000. It seems like a lot for something that would structurally not be that different. But I understand that there's a lot of information and data points that have to be updated, but that's still like, that's a huge chunk of funds for as like a 5-year maintenance.
So the biggest piece, my understanding is that the biggest piece that takes time is making sure all of the legal aspect, what laws and regulations have and haven't changed. And that's what takes the most amount of time, is my understanding. I have talked to a couple of other people who are familiar with this process, and they're like, yeah, it's more or less what it costs.
Every town in Vermont needs to do this. Every town in the country needs to do this.
Yes, some extent of it.
That's crazy.
I have not confirmed this, but I have heard that there's several towns in the state who don't have these plans and found out the hard way in 23. Did have one place. But yes, there is. So there's FEMA standard, and then there's whatever the local state requires as well. They have the ability to add on to it and have higher requirements.
So can you tell us, like, how useful it is to you, and like, do you consult it, like, how do you go to it, and?
Not regularly, I don't go to it. I would go to the emergency management plan first, personally. Because it gives me my, it lists who's on the committee for points of contact and what roles they fill. If we have a shelter open, or shelter points of contact are on the building. And then it has different resources that we can reach out to in the town. I'm going to be honest with you, I read the hazard mitigation plan. I didn't understand a large portion of it because I'm not an attorney, but I am doing my best to learn it and understanding as being new in this position and not having a lot of experience with it. There's a lot of information in it that could definitely be useful. I just have to decipher it a little bit more. So I'm working on it.
Okay.
Sounds like another project for Mark too.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I think that this falls into something that is a pretty significant expense that could largely probably be done at a regional level.
Yeah, county, I was wondering if
Yeah.
it's done county.
And if it's made
Why?
accessible enough.
Yeah, it is.
But because we don't have a county structure, it's
Right.
not done here that way.
Yeah, so New York is the closest state that's perfect example data of county governments.
Yeah.
And stuff like this is done on the county level
Right.
and not on the individual level. There's a lot of conversation had on town level and regional planning commission level about trying to push something to have more county level stuff instead, because we're all working on the same thing.
Right, yeah. We're all paying $11,000.
Exactly.
There's a price for being different.
Yeah.
That's it.
And unfortunately, it's not going to be anything to live.
All right, well, we'll talk to our legislator.
He doesn't sound like he's got much to work on. So I think that it's still prudent, the previous guidance is still prudent to keep it in the budget. I think we've got a pretty limited runway to try to feel it out, but there certainly is an opportunity if they award the grant.
And we'll try to get clarity from Keith on when we'll know whether we got that grant.
That'd be great.
Have you already
make sure.
No, you're going to adopt a resolution
Yeah,
in
we
a
have-
couple minutes. And
Yeah. So I think budget wise, I think does anybody have any other questions there?
Good.
Okay.
Thank you for your important work.
Yeah, well,
We appreciate it.
so next item up is do you want to just chat next steps, I guess, at all, or?
So next meeting is Conservation Commission, Trails Committee, and Cemetery Commission.
Yep.
Great.
And hopefully swim.
And swim.
And swim.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, James. I think that's pretty straightforward. Is there any other items that, you know, for just general update other than the resolution that we're gonna kind of take action on?
There we have too much more to add to that. Like I said, we would have a match, so it would you take approximately $10,000 out of that budget line instead of sort of be budget substantially.
Okay.
Like Kari just said, you guys are going to sign a resolution saying that regional planning commission can fill out that grant for us. Hopefully, I will hear back soon from Keith to know exactly when that's going to be awarded to applicants.
I think another topic that came up, I think it was the last meeting, was the drought situation and well water and what our plan is for helping community members who are making resources available. And during the 23 flooding, there's some potable water resources that were made available when there were well contamination issues. And I wonder if there was like state level conversations being had around organizing similar resources for drought related stuff and making that more kind of structural action plan. Assuming we keep whipsawing between these events.
Right. So yes, the Emergency Operations Center has been partially activated since mid-August, I want to say. They do not have any resources on hand, and they're not at that level of activation to where they're compiling stuff. I believe I mentioned this last meeting, but reiterate. So the State Emergency Operations Center and the Agency of Natural Resource got together and launched a drought response website, where they want everybody to go, whether it's on the town municipal level, city level, or it's residential, to report drought related issues such as your well or your spring going dry, or if you're having issues with municipal water systems. So they can keep record of it, do their best to assist towns however they can. Unfortunately, the big issue is they're running out of people to reach out to for resources. A lot of the companies in the state, such as Monash, they used to deliver large truckloads of water. They no longer have access to those resources where they were filling them. I was just talking a couple of weeks ago with a couple of people from the East Calais Water Committee. And right now we wanted to put their trucks to fill in the Calais Springs that have to come out of Massachusetts or Connecticut. So it's a pulses-based place that we can get large quantities of water from if needed. Well drilling companies are booking out middle of January, is my understanding right now, if you wanted to drill a new one or have yours deeper or racked or something. So our next meeting in November, my plan is to allocate a large portion of time specifically to talk about the drought and what we can do. Unfortunately, at the moment, there's not much, just because there's no state resources at the moment. But I have a connection at the National Weather Service that I'm setting up a meeting with to talk to him and see if he has any projections for what's to come, because everybody you talk to is saying something different. And then I've been in pretty normal contact with the Emergency Operations Center to keep those updates. The Vermont Environment and Health has water testing kits. Unfortunately, they are not free. They're about $100 a piece. They're not offering any free ones to towns this time around, where you can go get it. They have to order them from the website. They don't have them on hand. Hold the water sample, drop it off at your local health department. If you have any concerns about water contamination, that's it, unless you know what's going on. If anybody knows that they have water issues. The Department of Environmental Conservation, I just learned, has a grant to help people repair their water systems if they are personal residential water systems, if they have failed or close to failure. I don't have a lot of details about that. I've learned about it at the workshop for some issues that they're experiencing. So I'm trying to get more information for that to bring to our November meeting. There was some discussion, the people at the state that I was having at work, that potentially you could get like a bulk tank, one of those clean food tanks or water tanks or something, and fill it up, and then do like a fill station kind of thing. The only thing is that you have to make it extremely clear that this is gray water only, unless you have a reliable source to fill it with. And you have to somehow police it to make sure, okay, you're only allowed X amount of water today because that's all we have to offer. But then it comes down to, okay, where are we going to get these tanks from? Where are we going to get the water to fill these tanks from? So I am reaching out to every resource I have to try and come up with more answers and more help for community members as much as possible.
Seems like a reminder, I mean, I think that, I wonder how much the site is, I mean, with the shutdown, is it being updated? It's got big statements across it saying it's not being updated. But then it had a recent date, so maybe it is. But.
So anything FEMA or federal related is not being updated is my understanding.
Yeah.
The state's response website is still up and running and active.
Okay.
Good to go.
So it seems to me like an encouragement to continue, for folks to continue to report.
Yes.
Would be a positive. I thought your message that you included in Comfort Forum a while back now.
Yeah.
Was great. And I don't know if you thought about maybe doing another one.
I will be.
Or you probably haven't, I missed it.
I have not yet, but I
I
will see one this week.
Yeah, I mean, just because the weather's changing and just because we've had some rain does not mean this issue is over and.
Right, it's not even close.
Right.
I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Burlington area and Lake Champlain, but the Colchester Causeway, there is an island, 100 or so yards outlaw island. There's usually about 7 to 8 feet of water there. It is completely dry and you could walk across it. So it's a testament to how dry the entire state is.
I'm curious about I just recently came into the 275 gallon totes that just happened to be food grade clean. They were only used once for water and never used, so they were reasonably clean. And I did just terrible things with it, but it's something that comes, that those types of things come up and they're not terribly expensive. And,
Right.
It'd be helpful to know what the guidance is, but even if we're going into winter time and it's only for gray water use, and we need to be obscene in our warnings that it's not potable water, that could still be a pretty significant community resource if we're going into winter time and people are still struggling with well issues that can't be resolved.
Right.
So I guess just let me know. We should be moving forward
Well,
faster.
I feel like there was a notice about springs also not being.
Yeah, well, it's
Yeah.
definitely.
The big concern is with winter coming. Well, let's face it, we're not going to be able to travel for snow.
Right.
And the issue is that there's predictions that while it's going to be a wetter year, that it's going to be warm. And we're going to get a lot of rain instead of snow. But the ground is still going to freeze to some extent, so the water is not going to permeate the way that it needs to. And even if we don't get a lot of rain forced, and we do get snow, we're not going to get enough to take it out of this drought. Which is why I'm putting a meeting with the individual I know at the National Weather Services to say, hey, can you give us some more definitive information to see what's going on? This is not a problem that I see being fixed anytime soon, unfortunately. So, like I said, the state is monitoring it to the best of their ability at the moment, trying to get resources to whoever needs it. Fortunately, the resources that they usually reach out to are having the same issues. So we'll continue to look for resources myself and see what we're able to get. I did talk with the health officer, her name escapes me.
Catherine.
Thank you. And she received an email from the state about making public notices about where there are public springs that can be used. My understanding is, well, my original thought was that there was none in Calais, but it turns out there's one on Foster Hill Road, roughly halfway up, that I didn't know existed, and I've lived here my whole life. Well, once again, that's not drinkable water. And then there's one along Route 14 in Woodbury, right next to Woodbury Lake boat access. Personal opinion, with the amount of salt and brine that gets put down on Route 14, I don't know how much I'd want to use that water for anything, but.
Well, that comes up off the hill anyway. Yeah.
And then obviously there's the one in the S-curves, before you get to Hardwick, so there's a few places people can go. But they are running out there as well, or past one in Hardwick, there's nothing flow coming out of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think having like localized access to hardware totes and supplies,
Yeah.
even if they're not potable, they're probably more accessible to more people. But it raises all the policing needs and keeping it inside and warm in the wintertime. Anyway, we can save that for offline conversation. But thank you, James.
Thanks very much, Dave.
It's awesome having you be involved. So thanks, appreciate it. Great work, and we'll move on to our committees, I think, because that's, or no, we need to adopt the resolution that was posted to the shared drive. Was everybody able to see that? Does anybody have any question about the language?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm looking at it.
I haven't filled it in, I don't believe. So I put myself down as the municipal authorizing official and as the grant administrator. And Jordan, I made you the alternate.
Sounds good to me.
Cool.
That's fine with me.
And Jared signed it.
Does anybody have any concerns about those? No, whatever they would be called, values for the form. Okay, great. Can I get a motion to adopt the FY26 municipal resolution, municipal planning grant?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Thank you, and thanks, James.
Yep, no, I will, Corey and I will make sure that gets to Keith and we'll give you guys posted.
Are they accepting bribes under $11,000 for?
I am not at liberty to speak that, but we're on recorded television.
Art fellow. All right, committee appointments.
Thanks, James.
Thank you again.
Thank you, guys. So we've got a pilot considerations here. Hopefully everyone's some time to kind of review those and be familiar with them, and be nice to kind of try to roll through these as best we can. Time-wise, so the first one is a consideration to increase the number of seats on the Trails Committee to 10 to 15. And backstory here is that we have one appointment slot, multiple individuals. There's not both equally qualified, and the Trails Committee generally can use any more willing hands. While I think it's a fair conversation to discuss whether or not anybody needs to be formally appointed to those roles, I think that it's worth considering just bumping up the number and making that number a range to be defined relative to the interests. Barbara and I had a conversation around like how we might want to manage the appointment dates so that it's, you know, efficient to track. And I think we're still working through that dialogue a little bit, and we'll do that in consult with the Trails Committee. But the idea is to basically try to make it as seamless as possible and make sure that the Trails Committee is able to receive as many willing participants as they'd like. And does that sound about right to everyone? Does anybody have any concerns about increasing the number of appointees to the Trails Committee?
As long as we don't have to go looking for
them. In the woods or just in general? Yeah. Do we need any further discussion on that? Or if not, then I'd like to entertain a motion to increase or redefine the number of appointed slots on the Trails Committee to a range of 10 to 15 appointees.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. So then the next item is the consideration of two appointees to the Trails Committee. We have two folks here, Hasso and Sam Sedhalter. And the consideration would be for 3-year terms. And we'll entertain a little bit of, it says interview, but it seems like a little bit excessive. Yes.
But Tom Blatchley, I'm the
Yes.
chair.
Yep.
One of the slots is for somebody who just resigned.
That's right.
So it would be
Completing
completing,
the term.
It would be
Yeah.
completing the term.
Your term, but they'll be completing your term.
just to,
Thank you for that clarification.
Are the applicants here?
Yes.
All right.
Sam, do you want to give an intro and
Yeah.
express your strong desire to be on the trade?
Sure, yes, my name is Sam Sedhalter. Nice to meet everyone for those that I don't know or don't know me. Moved to Calais in 2021, so about 4 years ago, and just looking for a way to get involved with the town on more of a formal committee sort of level. My wife Tracy, she's on the Conservation Commission, so she's been there for a few years now and loves, working and helping out. So yeah, as somebody who moved here, not knowing a lot about the area, and it was during COVID as well that we moved here. I mean, we used the trails a ton, just excuse to get outside where we're going to be interacting with folks. So just felt like it was my duty to kind of give back and help maintain the trails. So
Great.
I assume it's the same tit for tat of volunteerism that happens in our household.
yes, yeah,
Somebody commits to a bunch of meetings and then the other one's like, I'll raise you.
exactly right.
A bunch of meetings.
And excuse to get out of the house.
Yeah,
and steal this
that's right.
weekend. You know it's
Yeah,
right.
See also on the committee?
She is also on the school committee, right?
Sounds like you need at least 2 more.
Yeah, I was like, if anybody else has anything to sign up for.
Like a reminder to check your email, there's an important one from some committee.
Thank you.
Thank you for.
I'll let her know. as soon as we
Taking notes on the meeting. Now I gotta be careful about what we're talking about. People are actually paying attention. Well, great. Thank you, Sam. Hasso, would you like to
Yeah.
give an introduction?
Sure. I live up on Robinson Hill Road, so I walk those trails all the time, incessantly with my dogs. And have had a lot of experience in working outside in natural areas. We've done native plants, with doing trail work, conservation commissions, things of that nature. So I think I have a background that might be helpful to the commission. and, or to the committee. And, yeah, I would like to get to know the other trails in town, because there's other ones that I haven't explored, so it's an excuse to do that too. And any reason to be outside in the woods.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions? No, someone's comments?
I appreciate it. We
Yeah.
appreciate you both. Thank you. Yeah. We need to, how do you want to do the designation of who's doing which?
Well, do you have an opinion about picking up the last year of the it's a one year remaining, I think?
I thought it was a typo, 2026 thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a 3-year term, but then it had 2026.
Either one of you have a preference as to it ending next year, but you're up for reappointment right after that.
It doesn't matter. It's not matter.
Yeah, it's fine.
So we'll let Barbara flip a coin. And I guess just as kind of notice to whomever that is, we've kind of changed a little bit on when those reappointments happen, that kind of air gap that from town meeting and the organizational meetings for the select board. So that reappointment would happen at the beginning of July, basically at the switch of the fiscal year, which just kind of just made it the reappointment schedule a little more manageable.
Sure.
You have a preference.
I'll take the open seat, the 2026 one.
Okay. I'll give you a chance to pull the ripcord if you really want.
Right.
Get my position.
Great. So I would then entertain a motion to appoint Sam Sudholter to the open vacancy that is expiring in 2026 for the Trails Committee, and a joint motion to appoint Hasso Ewing to the Trails Committee and the newly appointed, as a new seat, 3-year term.
Right, that expires in 2028.
That expires 2028.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you both. And thank you, Tom.
It's great.
Nice job recruiting.
Appreciate it. Cool kids want to be on the trip?
It's a hot competition.
Yeah.
You told me it's the biggest committee in town.
We got seats up here too.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be my second thing.
It's a real arms race. Great. Thank you, everyone. The next appointment consideration is the appointment of Sarah Gallagher to a 1-year term on the Social Services Appropriations Committee, which, as a reminder, is the committee that does the year-end review of the services appropriations that get voted on.
It goes on town meeting.
That's right. And it seems like a very well qualified individual, very exciting addition to the cohort.
I can't think of anybody better.
Yeah.
Yep.
So can I have a motion to appoint?
I move to appoint.
Thanks.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No abstentions. The last item for the appointments is the reappointment of Ann Winchester, Barbara McAndrews, and Chris Anderson to the 1-year terms, also to serve on the Social Service Appropriations Advisory Committee. And there is no constraints on the number of folks, so it's assuming all of those individuals are willing to serve, as they expressed they were. Do we need any further dialogue around that?
I move to reappoint the 3 named individuals to the committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And you can vote, Barbara.
Should I did say aye.
I was gonna say, I didn't know if she has
Should I
to
make a
say.
vote? You can vote for yourself. Okay. They all do.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Aye.
Damn them.
Great. So the next item up is the curb cut consideration. So there was a curb cut application that was posted to the shared drive, and Art provided some commentary on that in the memo. Was everybody able to?
I just want to make sure, are you, no? No, okay.
No.
So I guess the applicants are not here.
I drove by there today and there were stakes on the counter.
Okay, so
Is that,
here's,
Is it flagged or?
here's what I understand about
It is now.
about it. So it was, there was flagging there. John went on Monday to look at it, and that site where it's flagged does not provide enough line of sight.
I see.
It's a 50-mile-an-hour zone,
No.
so you need 425 feet
from around the corner?
And so that's
25 feet from, just
from
visibility.
on either side, right, up and down
Yeah,
County Road.
okay.
And so John suggested if they wanted to put it where the field access is currently, that's where the tractor can enter into the field, that would be appropriate. So I spoke with Mark on the phone Tuesday, and he said he would take a look at that. He wanted to avoid that. He thought it was too wet, the field access. But I explained that he needed the 425. He met with John on Wednesday, and they apparently agreed to a new location, but it was not marked, and I didn't get an update to the map here, so I guess I'd have to say, with them not being here, I would say, why don't we hold off on this until we get more definitive on the placement of this?
Yeah.
Unless you want to
This
condition it.
application refers to the previous,
Well, but it,
is that right?
This drawing refers to what they originally proposed,
Okay.
what is marked currently, which is pretty far up the field, almost to the trees.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I would feel most, I would feel most comfortable, I think, punting this one to the next one if it doesn't, I don't think, restrict them from doing whatever they feel like they need to do anyway. But I think that I drove by there today, assuming the flags are associated with like the original one that is still is still represented in the plan, like that. Maybe that's technically 300 feet, but I still not even sure that that's quite.
Yeah, they didn't realize they needed 425.
So I think moving it south down the road, even somewhere in between, would be a little more reasonable, even if they didn't want to go all the way down to the original field access, if they've got real concerns about that. And, I guess I would just kind of tell them like the conditions that I'd like to see on there likely would be that if there are line of sight concerns that are raised by the community, that they would likely be responsible for putting up signage. But the other thing to, I think, kind of take into consideration is that there's been some renewed interest in revisiting the speed of the speed limit on the county road, and that would bring that down to like 325 feet or something, or 310 feet if they're at 40 miles an hour, right? So they would be closer, but I still think that that's not quite. That proposed area is not.
we need to prioritize safety.
Definitely.
So.
Did John put a marker in where 425 feet was?
He did not. He just told me that the field access
Not really.
was suitable,
Yeah,
but I never heard the final location, so I think it's reasonable to wait 2 weeks.
I think that's right.
Get it marked and get it back on that.
Please give us an application and flag the.
Will do.
Thank you.
All right, great. Walk on. And that's what I'm trying to build. Don't talk about enough hitting very well. All right, so we'll move on. So we've got a period of public comment, which is a 15-minute time for anybody, members of the public who want to raise or speak to an issue that's not presently represented on the agenda. Are there anybody or not many folks here. So are you guys here to talk about an existing agenda item?
Yeah,
Yeah.
hi, my name's Aaron Fuller, I'm the land surveyor, I'm not sure, were we on the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so.
Sorry.
No,
Okay,
nothing.
Not right now.
We're on the.
yeah, we're on the, yeah, great, perfect. Then, assuming there aren't any other items to discuss in the public comment, we'll move on to the administrative and other action items.
You're on schedule.
Stop it, would you? Approve, so the first item is the approval of the minutes from the October 6th select board meeting that were posted to the shared drive. Hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to review those. Okay, great. Do you want a second then?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Shayna. Vote to approve the board orders also posted with a couple of notes on additions that were added. Does anybody have any questions about the board orders or Kari's notes on the updated?
We're on the board orders.
Yeah.
If you want to pull out the Bellavance warrant that I mailed out, so we can deal with that separately, maybe? Or
I think that's appropriate.
Well, wait,
It bears discussion.
Yeah, it does bear discussion.
You want to just have that discussion?
Let's just have the discussion.
Okay, so just to run through, everyone's clear about this, is that we're talking about the Cantel Road project. The grant award is for $121,349. We budgeted an additional $30,337. Their bid was $145,740, and then we agreed to a change order of $7,667, which brought us to just about the budgeted grant amount. Their invoice came in such that we have a gap of about $35,000. And we went to the state, asked for additional grant funding. Got a kind of letter from our engineer explaining how they think this happened. And, you know, to the extent that we think it's beneficial, why they might want to fund it, and the state declined our request. So we have this gap of 35,000. So what I've made out this payment and the warrant is based on the bid amount and the agreed to change order, with the suggestion that Toby and I go back to Bellavance, the contractor, and negotiate what's a reasonable compromise. And, you know, I have a understanding of what they did, but they weren't authorized to go that far. They weren't authorized to excavate that amount, and
The letter was very helpful.
yeah, it was.
It was good. I mean, I think that from my perspective, I think that the letter was, you know, very helpful and put us in a favorable position for consideration. And I believe that the work that was performed was the appropriate amount of work to be done. So, you know, had we gone through.
Had we been asked,
you know, that's likely where we would be. So it seems more like we've got a process problem than anything else. And I think, you know, in the interim, it is appropriate to approve the payment for what has been approved and work through some more dialogue around, you know, if there's another resolution. And
no, I appreciate that approach. And I mean, I think we have previously flagged if there's anything we need to do to prevent a similar level of miscommunication.
Yeah, I think having the engineer more involved during the construction oversight.
If it were another more technical process, we would have, I think, and then this is just like a confluence of like best practice recommendations that were signed off by the engineer, and then a lot of unknowns, a higher potential for unknown, you know, grade issues and excavation issues because of the topography and swamp. Anyway, So if that's what's been proposed for approval in the board orders is to approve the
Pay what we've agreed.
what we've agreed to.
And then work it out with them. I would bring back to you what we think is a reasonable compromise.
Yep. So assuming that everybody's on board with that and like blanket approval of the board orders as proposed, then like to entertain a motion for approving and signing the board orders.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Good.
And thanks, Kari.
Hmm.
The next item is the discussion around the expenditure for the county road shoulder. Is that right?
The shoulder work.
Yeah, the shoulder work.
Yep.
So go ahead.
So I emailed you this morning.
Yeah.
That John Stafford had suggested that the road crew could do it. Jordan rightly questioned, the scope of what, the road crew was considering there. And so I went back, so John thought it could be done with about 50 yards of cubic yards of material, like 3 truckloads or something like that. Jordan thought it was considerably more than that. I went back to the Pike quote, it calls for 200 tons of material, which translates to about 280 cubic yards. So when I discussed that with John, he thought that that was beyond what they could do. I discussed it with Toby as well. His only point was that if we were looking to save money, wouldn't necessarily need to do the shoulder work on the northern half, or I'm sorry, the southern half that wasn't repaved, just because we've been living with that shoulder for a number of years now. So that,
But does it, we wouldn't have to redo it when we can do that section,
in a couple of years or whenever we get around.
right?
No, we would need to add to it. It's not really like a redoing, because like right now the shoulder material is kind of eroded away. So anything that hasn't been paved is probably like 1 inch to 2 inches of like eroded material that's kind of sloughed away from the road. So I don't think that there's any question that it wouldn't improve, the life expectancy of the sections that are unpaved to a certain extent. And I guess for context, I just replied to Kari directly when he emailed this morning, and I did some like napkin math and came to a figure that was around that I thought was fairly conservative, around I think it was like 160 yards or something, or 140 cubic yards per side.
So you were pretty close. You were closer
to what Pike was thinking, and I think that there's probably kind of a happy medium there, but at the same time, I feel pretty strongly about like the safety risk that this represents, and both for the driving public, but then also the road crew, who initially when we talked about it, we're going to be doing it by hand. It does sound like they have a relatively creative solution for getting the material out of the truck so that it's not literally shoveling 200.
They apparently did it on Lightning Ridge a few years ago.
Yeah.
And so they created a makeshift chute.
Yeah. But the other part that I feel like is pretty important and would likely be addressed by Pike would be the compaction. So it's one thing to just like shovel the stuff there and just make like a little, like triangle to help support, but like it needs to be compacted. And
my understanding from Toby is they have a machine that does this
for Pike.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, as much as I'd love to save the money and the consideration to the budget constraints, like I'd also love the guys to like, if they're feeling like their punch list for the end of the season is in pretty good shape, let's do the grading one more time.
I think John will include the author once he.
Yeah, okay.
The volume.
Yeah.
So then we have a consideration to approve the quote from Pike for 16,000.
Yeah. That's right.
16,000, and do I need to give an exact number? I probably should. That is
16,236.
16,236 for the application of shoulder material along the edge of the paved and I guess it's both sides.
All 3 miles,
3
including
miles.
driveways,
Yeah, awesome.
And that will be done when?
right away. I think you'd like to get going this week.
That's great.
Yeah.
Love it.
Take that, East Montpelier. Sorry, did I say that?
We got fog lines.
We got fog lines. We're looking good. Thanks, everybody. So is there a second to that?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great.
Now we're early. Are we going too fast? You guys want to slow down?
No, I was,
Please.
that's what I was doing
Oh.
upstairs, wondering what next.
Yes. Well,
Speaking of.
speaking of, which is our next agenda item. Sorry, guys, it's a long one.
You were there. Oh, geez, okay.
Well, we can stay later if you want. Have a night away. This is the dream. At the town hall.
Do you want, is everybody here for this one? Or?
For the town hall?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And David's certainly here.
I am, but can I go upstairs quickly?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's good, like,
Could I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
Screen.
My party was the 18th here, and it worked out very well.
Oh, great.
It was, we had 41 people, it's just the right size, we could have a few more spaces comfortable. You would not have recognized the place.
Did you have it down here with, or was it?
Yes, yes, it's down here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, and I just want to say how happy we were in the space.
Oh,
Very good.
Very good. Thank you.
And I would definitely recommend the space. Yes.
Thank you. That's good to hear.
All right,
I'll save the rest of my remark. I have a preamble.
so, we do have some.
I have a few questions too.
There. What do we, what?
That's our.
We up? Yeah, oh, yeah. Thanks for being here. So we've got a dialogue around the town hall management agreement, and members of the Friends of the Town Hall here to kind of keep working through that dialogue. And I just wanted to kind of preface, like, there's a lot of conversations that are being had, and I know that this has kind of come up as a more extended conversation than we generally have around this. So far, everyone certainly on the side of the table is committed to just like kind of working through this. And so last time, I think we got a little more into the weeds than we were really probably needed to get into. And a lot of work has been done on the agreement side. I think there's probably still some massaging to be done relative to each party's input. I'd like to still kind of avoid getting too far down into the weeds on dialogue around the agreement, because the intention is to commit a couple of token representatives to continue through that, so that we don't just have to keep doing this. So hopefully that, and it's all being done with the like best intentions, and hopefully that's shared on the other side. So with that, there's kind of like, it seems like there are parallel, I'll just call them issues for lack of better terms, that are being surfaced at the same time as the agreement, and they're kind of related to each other. And part of that is that Friends have gotten to the point where they're ready to start hosting, and that there's been a significant scope of work done upstairs, and this isn't anybody's fault in particular, but I think that it's fair to say that there's kind of a sense that the scope of work exceeded what was on the radar of certainly the select board and other, town officials to a certain extent. And in retrospect, I guess probably could have had clear purview over. And I guess I'm just serving that up because it feels like a little bit of an elephant in the room type situation. And just, I think we don't have to get into the weeds on that so much tonight, but I think it is informing a certain amount of the dialogue around the agreement and what is included in the agreement now that there is infrastructure and there are aspirations to host events and how to schedule them and manage them, but still make it available as a community resource and not losing sight that like this building is a town-owned building. And we need to make sure that there's a process for like how we're considering these improvements in a way that is mindful of that and equitable.
I'm happy to talk about this.
Yeah.
Scope work issue.
Yeah, no.
And I think there's probably a couple of things. One is that this started a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's been turnover within the board.
Yeah.
I don't think the scope from our standpoint has ever changed. Like that was, I mean, we knew from the beginning there was going to be the soundboard and the light board and speakers and all that kind of stuff. None of that's really a surprise. It was brought up several times in previous light board people. So it's a little bit surprising to me that was a surprise to you folks. And also it was, I don't know, Kari, when did you and I meet upstairs?
It was in the spring, right?
Yeah,
And you
so-
provided a sketch and.
Yeah, so this came up. This was like, okay, so what are we actually doing? And it was kind of decided that a representative from us, which is me, and a representative you, which was Kari. I mean, we spent an hour upstairs just kind of pointing out. Did I give you a sketch? I can't remember.
You did.
Yeah.
You did, and I shared it, but I don't think it really sunk in.
Right. You see an empty room and then all of a sudden you see all the stuff in there, but nothing was snuck through, nothing was hidden, nothing was a secret. So
No,
There's no
and
implication of that.
no, there's not at all.
but that was always kind of the plan from the beginning. I mean, if we felt like it was conveyed, enough that it wouldn't have been a surprise to you guys.
Nobody is saying that there was anything underhanded or, I think that it was just like, and me personally, like the scope of things that we have to consider and make a decision on and trying to appoint somebody to do something like as from my experience level, like the dialogue and conversation with friends and renewing the agreement every year, it seems like this kind of an odd thing, but we've been doing this for a long time. And who am I to get in the way of that? And it's David and Toby for the last couple of years saying like, these are some adjustments and changes but then, there was a plan to move forward that was just certainly completely off my radar.
Yeah. And we realized it happened
and
fast, like it went from an
Yeah.
idea to a thing
Yeah.
in like, a month when everything really came in and got set up. And stuff.
And there was a huge push and understandably to get things in place so that there could be the ability to move forward with like the events that have always been part of the plan, and now have the opportunity to move forward with.
And I will say the silver lining is like doing the play up there. I mean, that is like a nice theater space now. I mean, it's not just, a hack job, whatever. I mean, it's good. It's a real theater now. And, so there's the upside.
So there's one part for me, like there's the character of the building that like it still seems like there's a lot of new conduit, there's boards and that sort of thing that I think needs to be addressed and just to like it is a lot of substantial equipment and it's of great quality and certainly gets the space closer to being used for a robust amount of different types of events as a community resource.
I think part of that was that we do have a longer vision and it's gonna, it may take some more fundraising, whatever, but we would love to put in, like ceiling work. That's, because that ceiling is not great. If there's ever insulation that's installed, if there's ever soundproofing material, a better ceiling, like a lot of that can be. Not all of it was in the infrastructure of the building, so that if we ever are able to do more with it and put in soundproof ceiling, I think not soundproof, but sound absorbing. Most of the work that's up there can easily be redone and tucked away better if that ever does happen. So we just kind of surface mounted everything so that there wasn't major construction done now.
Yep. Well, and I hear that. I think that's, I'm not saying that was necessarily the wrong approach, but I do, what I'm trying to be sensitive of is like, there may be other people in the community who haven't been tracking this conversation or the scope of work. And I am sensitive to the fact that that people might be caught off guard by it and wanting to try to minimize that kind of that initial maybe shock. And what can we do to just kind of soften that? And I'm literally just talking about like painting things so that it blends in with the walls a little bit, not the equipment, but like, but the conduit and the panel.
And that's all, and that's all like.
The town submitted a grant application.
Yeah.
Right? And we could not get that grant. That grant was to do it the right way.
Yeah.
That is why this has been done as a temporary stopgap. And there is no intention, I don't think whatsoever, I certainly would not support the hall looking the way it looks right now, no question. But we have to get the money to do the bigger project, which is walls, ceiling, energy efficiency. That was what the grant was for. And somehow we still need to do that. These guys want to make it usable. So the problem is making it usable before we could do the bigger project. But there is no intention on the organization's part to not have the original vision of making it a usable space year round. That's the other problem, is the heat is not up there such that it would make it truly a four-season facility. So that is still the goal. This is because the money was there to make it a more usable cultural facility, which is what it can't be without that. That's the reason for this decision, to move forward with that in the interim.
Yeah, and I think
if we had the money.
Yeah.
And the gift was specifically given for that purpose.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so I think this is not intended to sound like accusations. It's a learning curve all the way around, right? And so
totally get it.
It feels good to know that like the organization is on board.
Right.
And I think that there's already some really important and progressive conversation on like how to make sure that like the town has better line of sight into that decision-making process at the organization level, so that, you know, we don't get to this point where we're like, oh, wow, that caught us off guard a little bit because it's been years or what have you, or different makeup of different boards since the topic was last discussed. Because like, as long as the goalposts are the same and we're working to them, and every once in a while we need to make incremental decisions in the most efficient way possible. I think right now, from my personal perspective, it's like, okay, well, understood that the organization made that decision. Like, how do we kind of temper its impact as it's being used for all kinds of different things? And still not lose sight of both how the space gets used from the organization standpoint, and also how we're working towards continuing to work towards the more ambitious goal.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like cosmetically, we want to improve the space too.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm guessing there may be some people that, you know, this building is not the oldest church too, right? I mean, there were floodlights that were put up there way before we started doing things. And, you know,
the ceiling is, I mean, there's nothing historic really about that room. It's all been kind of bastardized over the years. It's not, you know, I mean, and now with all the equipment, it certainly looks different.
But it's never, I mean, but now it's a usable space. So for us, it's like, okay, there are going to be lights and things. Yes, cosmetically, we will improve it. Like we'll try to hide cords and we will paint things and we will, moving forward, but it is going to be the theater. So some of that stuff is always going to be exposed. And I'm sure there are probably some people who don't like that idea in this building and in that room. But now it is a usable space that will mean we were brought in to be to make it a cultural thing. And those are the things that were needed. So, but yeah, I mean, cosmetically, we want to improve it too.
And I don't know that people know that most of the money that came in to improve this whole building came in because we were gonna put a theater upstairs. And we went to the town to, get the, not the grant, the bond. We explained that we were gonna do a theater, that we lost the Blue Barn, we were gonna do a theater, and it was unanimous. There wasn't even one person that voted against it. So, that's, part of the history is like, it was very welcomed. The large portion of the gifts that were given were due to it becoming a theater.
Mhm.
So.
Well, that was something that I had another conversation about, for me, it's like continuity and documentation of all of these things. Like we're working on a human scale. Like some of these projects exceed that human scale. Whether it's a curb cut application or a vision for how to use the space, trying to bring a little more structure to how we're documenting what those aspirations are, so that at a minimum, just it's nice to know who's involved in the projects. When 50 years from now we're looking back and it's just like, well, who did this to this amazing space, and we have that documentation or a vision, or hey, we need to dust off this idea that we had 25 years ago. Here's a little drawing, and it doesn't need to be like architectural blueprints of how to building details, but like I think it would be nice, especially for facilities like this, even if to a certain extent there are multiple generations of improvements and et cetera, that we're just making sure that we're being mindful of how we're representing those plans and how they're being reviewed. So I just don't want people coming in here and saying, "What did you let them do?" There's nobody is doing that at this point, but that's a gross mischaracterization of the worst case scenario, right? Anyway, with that aside, I think it's fair to probably pivot to some dialogue around what the next steps are for continuing to review the agreement. And I think really this was intended to be kind of a forum to review some of the proposed edits and work through a little bit of dialogue around like the bigger chunks of like what each group's like aspirations are out of a revised agreement. Because I think that those
drafts been shared back and forth.
No, I actually think
I think the intention here is more of the big picture. What are your guys what's the thinking on your side of like things you feel like need to evolve or change, or
If we had those meetings,
what you've learned?
Yeah.
And it's same here.
Right.
And we're also coming up to speed on this,
Yep.
that was really
Right.
an important point that you made, David, and
yes, we've had those meetings, like, and the plan that I remember from however long ago it was, a couple months ago, was that the select board was going to designate a couple of people to kind of go.
That's right.
Management agreement, make some notes.
Yeah.
We would do the same. At some point, we would share those notes. We
Yeah.
haven't done that yet, but we're ready to. And it's not big changes, or big things.
No.
And then that we would share those with each other maybe before the next meeting or whenever that's up at a discussion.
I think the other the timeline I think is less important.
Conversation first.
Yeah, I think we needed to have like this conversation first, and it's a little bit of a fits and starts thing because you want to try to do it in the open air. But also to make the appointments like that. I think the big item is to appoint some liaisons officially so that those conversations can be had more regularly or a little more seamlessly because we've got folks that, are representing the interests of, on both sides. So this is like one more effort to have kind of some public dialogue collectively about like what some of those broader strokes are. And then we can kind of assign some representatives to continuing to refine and massage that in a more efficient process, right? That sounds like a fair characterization.
Here's how I'm actually, I think the select board asked a small group of us to look at this and sort of report back.
Right.
And so I don't mean to choke off dialogue between the two groups. That's very important, but it actually seems a little premature because the select board needs to get a little bit more clear, I think, on what it's looking for. So here's what in really quick summary, what that small group was. Let's not rush anything. Let's take really a full year to work out the long-term alignment between the two groups. I think that's the most important thing that I heard is that, especially because you're an independent nonprofit,
right?
That we really need to make sure that we're in sync. And the most important aspect of that is appointing the ex officio member to the board, which we haven't been doing. It was a good thing we read those bylaws because we didn't realize we weren't doing that important step. And then.
Well, Cliff had said that he was really that person for a period of time because he was on the select board, right? So
That got lost.
just years of shift.
Yeah.
So sorry.
But then the group also identified a number of priority issues that we may want to consider incorporating into the next agreement if that happens in the next couple of months. And so that's the work that we provided to you, if you care to discuss it tonight or, but that was my hope, is that we would get some clarity so that we could mock up a draft to give to the Friends.
Does anybody want to start? Barbara, do you have?
Yeah, so I wanted to add to that and address Artie's last comment. We did have that agreement that you guys work on it, the small group would work on it, would come share those notes. That meeting was not with the select board, that was just with Jamie and me. And so when we took that plan, that original plan to the select board, they wanted to shift that around, which is why that meeting has not happened.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm sure Jamie, I saw the email that Jamie sent to you guys to explain that the select board wanted to shift that plan. And they also wanted you guys to go ahead and hold your annual meeting. They want to see the annual meeting happen while they're working on their revisions or their suggestions for the for the agreement.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make too, is just one of the points of continuity for you as an organization is to have those annual meetings. So you're reporting out. So yes, the select board, but also the community understands what the process is. And so that we don't run into anything where there is potentially concern about what's going on there, right? And if you don't happen to be one of the people that came to the play, that might not be as clear. Right, so that piece is really, I think that was one of the pieces that came up that was really of interest to us, that there's regular reporting, the cadence of which to this body is a question, just because it's not really, you don't run on a fiscal year that, your period. So we were thinking like, some kind of reporting structure so that you're coming in at the end of the year and letting us know how the year is going.
Yeah, and I think that
And then thinking about what you're doing in the spring as well, like projecting, once maybe later in the and this point about the ex officio came up. And then, just thinking about a little bit about long-term planning and making sure that we're in sync with one another, not to drive what the Friends is doing, but more to make sure we're all in sync. And I think another piece around this would just be around the operation. There's operational questions, right, that are coming up just in terms of calendar and usage and what happens here versus what happens upstairs. And some of that is, now that you've had one event for a period of time, and you're gonna have another community-wide event. What are some of those things that are coming up that are that could be handled differently, or there's opportunities for improvement? But then there's other bigger questions around, like, what is the fundraising plan? And how does that, because that'll impact. And so it's mostly that we have, part of the reason I feel like the select board, at least the subgroup that we're talking with Kari, not knowing what the plan is part of the challenge of helping figure out where we go from here. So I don't know, did that articulate a little bit of it?
Yeah.
To add to what you said very expertly. Sorry.
Well, and I think another point that the select board raised last time was making sure that it's clear to the residents of the town that this is their building and that it's used, it can be used for many different purposes, downstairs, upstairs, it's open, and we want it to be, something that the town residents know that they can utilize in various ways. And I think that's.
Yeah, so that kind of brings up like just a very specific, I think, point of feedback for the working, like for the ex officio members and kind of like working groups to kind of keep sussing out that like the usage of the space. I think in the early days it seemed like there's a need to organize and have the nonprofit structure that gave some advantages, I think, to trying to seek funding from different sources, more flexibility. I think that there's probably a way that we can even enhance that a little bit further with like creating a reserve fund for the town hall that is town managed, so that funds can either be appropriated for specific scopes of work or transferred from the Friends to the town if that for some reason creates an advantage for grant funding, et cetera, or if that makes a particular donor more comfortable that it's that there's some structure to that is defined. So committed to nailing those things down. But one of the more particular ones was that there was some feedback that there was some discomfort with having like priority access to scheduling for the Friends for scheduling events. I personally don't feel that strongly about that because the Friends have such a intimate involvement in the development of the site and also to the fundraising, and I think that does like warrant a certain amount of maybe special treatment or rate structure or something. But I do think that needs to be defined and then planned for, right? So that it doesn't, because I think that then creates a underlying conflict of interest for like using and making the space more available for the community. So, I think if the Friends aren't feeling as strongly about being like responsible for the bulk of all of the scheduling and the more administrative elements of it, I think that there's opportunity for the town to pick up some of that and work a little more closely with the Friends to like work on a block of scheduling for very specific events, or to get kind of that first come access for scheduling, because I don't think that's terribly unreasonable, but I think there needs to be a certain level of transparency around like when those events are and how we use the space in between, and then also how that particular usage then interplays with the downstairs usage if there's overlap, because in the interim, I think that there's a potential for issuing conflict with that too. I don't know how like upstairs, the parking and the noise and everything, like the foundations are the same down here as they are upstairs. And in this short-term period, we're gonna continue to wrestle through those kind of growing pains of like kind of bringing this to fruition as best we can.
So I just think this might not, I don't know if this is the meeting to bring this up, but we kind of do based on, you know, the conversation about how the Blue Bar players were brought in. We feel pretty strongly that now the Gospel Hall players, like, we have earned some benefit, right?
Yeah.
And that this is now our home theater, and trying to put on a theater production. You can't undo sets and lighting and, you know, so there is going to be some block of time that we're going to be requested. I mean, the plan now that we see sort of going forward is that there will be a spring show and a fall show. And around those dates, there will be some specific amount of time where there probably might not be events that could happen upstairs based on there's going to be sets and there's going to be stuff set up. So we feel, you know, as in, I think there are other places that have a precedent of kind of the same thing. Like, you know, if we're the home theater of this thing, we're one of the major fundraisers and scheduling all of the stuff that we're doing. Yes, we may block off the calendar for X amount of time for our shows.
And I'm not saying that that's inappropriate, you know, from my perspective. Again, I try not to use my position as chair to speak on behalf of everybody, but you know, I think that there's a certain amount of that is warranted. I think that we just need to be careful if that is the case, and it is something that the Friends feel strongly about, that it doesn't end up feeling like a moving target type of situation, but we would say, okay, like, this is the plan, and if it needs to shift for scheduling reasons, that we're doing that, so that we try to avoid as much conflict as possible with community expectations, if those differ, and then how do we manage those if there are differing competing interests in the use of the space. But I hear that for sure.
I mean, I think the big thing here is that we're talking about an all volunteer organization.
Yeah.
And so the list, if you look in the agreement, is a very vast list for an all volunteer group. And who are the people who are actively going to show up for every single use that is requested by someone, who will do the follow-up, who
Yeah.
So I think in these times, I am involved with no less than 4 or 5 current all volunteer organizations, and it tends to be the same people in a community, generally speaking, who do the volunteering, and they spread themselves across all the things they believe in. I think the problem for the hall is we've not gotten launched, primarily because nothing happened upstairs. All, as Nancy said, the big gift that came in ended up augmenting the bond to complete the downstairs, which was the highest priority, no question, because it's the municipal use if we're no longer having town meeting upstairs. So, at which, you know, at the time this project was born, we were still planning to return to using the upstairs for that purpose too. So it was a mixture of theater performance space. The hall has never had much of a history, unlike other town halls. This town hall has never had much of a history of being used for those purposes. And so anyway, we're at this point now where I think the Friends need to rebuild, because we have lost quite a few of our people, just like the vast majority of all volunteer groups. They're no longer as easy to recruit more people to keep us energized. And if there is something like the Blue Barn players and other groups that see a future up there. I think we all need to understand that that is something we have to do possibly if we're gonna have volunteer energy. Because the volunteer energy will be directly commensurate to what they get out of being volunteers here. So I think we have to be as open as possible about how we bring people into the organization and keep the hall developing to the point where we'll finally have a successful upstairs and downstairs. And then we will possibly get to a point where we need to pay somebody to police the upstairs and the downstairs, because it'll be so successful that we're gonna have a calendar that is really gonna be challenging to manage, right?
Well, yeah.
Right now, we don't have a calendar that is all that challenging, but if we succeed, it will be. And the success will in turn help us pay somebody to actively manage, because all volunteer at that point is probably not gonna work.
Well, and I guess I would augment that just a little bit by saying, like, I think the other thing that has changed is that there's been a commitment to staffing on like the select board and focus on services and access to resources and all that sort of thing, and some of the relatively new additions to the town infrastructure have made facilitating some of that management a little more easier than it maybe previously was, in a more organized fashion, which I guess is an overly complex way of just saying, like, I think we're in a better position to help as a town. And maybe some of those more administrative functions that are robust and still and perpetually a burden for any volunteer organization, through, more open dialogue can be absorbed from the town.
Sure.
And there is something unique about this space versus the North Calais space and the community center, and the Old West Church. They all have kind of their unique selling propositions, and while we're looking at very creative ways to make these resources available and fundraise within the community, or make them available for reasonable rental fees, et cetera, like, we're a little bit better positioned to do that efficiently, I think, as a community. So that, I think, is a good conversation to work through. I'm sorry.
I feel also like we thought that everybody was excited about a theater happening there, especially when we went to the town meeting and everybody voted for it to support the bond. So, feeling like people are upset about there being lights and that sort of thing is just like, oh, I didn't expect that. I thought that people were excited about having a theater, and this.
I think that's a communication thing, Nancy. It's not like, I'm not trying to say there's a bunch of people really upset. I'm just saying that over time, you bring people along of how this, of course it's stalled for a variety of reasons. And I'm sure you found that the opening event that you did, I wasn't able to be here, but that people were delighted to see what was going on and where things have come, but it's keeping people so that even the select board, like, I know I'm new, so I'm coming into this late in the game, but just understanding where you all were at is something I don't think we had a strong grip on. I don't want to speak for people, but and I think that's partly the communication of. So I don't think there's like a negative as much as that there's been a blank, an open space of where things are at and what's really happening.
So I just want to be mindful of time. I really appreciate the dialogue. I think we're largely rowing in the same direction. Juanita, I saw your hand is up, so I just want to note that I think I want to hear from Juanita, and I think we need to make that ex officio appointment, and then, if everybody's comfortable with kind of letting that sit, we'll move on.
Yeah.
All right, great. Juanita?
I just want to suggest that maybe you could recruit more people by having a group of people who are dedicated to just renting out the downstairs and dealing with the downstairs, because it seems like they're two separate things. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't know it's available. I come here for cemetery meetings because I'm on the cemetery commission. So I knew about it when we were planning my 70th birthday party. This is where I wanted to have it. Because I knew the space. I could let myself in.
I think that's a lot, I think, going back to what you were just talking about, yeah, we feel, and now this, what happened upstairs is pretty grand. I mean, there is now a theater space in there. So I feel like, and that's what the friends were brought on to do, the cultural thing, the music and arts and things like that. I don't necessarily think from the origin, our job was to take care of a meeting downstairs for a committee or for a birthday party or something like that. So I do feel like there is kind of a divide. There is sort of two separate things.
They could still be part of the Friends group, but dedicated to dealing with downstairs events.
They're very different things.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to be mindful that it's hard to separate the impacts that each use has on each
Oh,
other.
totally.
Right? So there's
Right.
like this inherent coordination that we're just gonna have to get better at and didn't maybe have full line of sight on when everything was being formed and the plan and aspirations, and town had limited resources. So like, let's get a volunteer group together and everybody's motivated to do this. But now we need to like make sure we're dotting i's and crossing t's, because the stakes are rising, right?
When we were planning my party, we originally wanted it to be on the 11th, but then we found out there was something going on upstairs here. And there was a chance of them overlapping, so we were flexible and we switched it to the 18th. So obviously, you need to coordinate upstairs and downstairs.
So I would just like to, I guess, get a point of clarification, bring it back to the select board, I guess, party. So we have the ex officio appointment to make, but then there was also discussion about like appointing a pair of representatives to kind of liaise. Am I misunderstanding that, or
Talk about
just
that so
one?
much, but
Just the one?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
on the second week.
Well, and didn't you do that at the last meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When designated Jamie and Barbara and Kari to do that.
That still stands then. Everybody's still
I think
comfortable with those roles?
Yeah.
Okay. So would anybody like to express an interest in being that ex officio nominee before somebody is made that?
volunteers.
I offered to do this, since I haven't taken on any other major projects. For the select board, so.
Thank you, Barbara.
Plus, you're really interested, plus you're really good. I nominate Barbara.
I second that nomination, unless you feel strongly about it.
Bill feels really strongly.
I don't get
wants to be.
Move or second anything.
Second,
Fine.
whatever.
This came about because when we were, way too in the weeds around the bylaws, but it did seem like it was an appropriate thing to support more better communication and understanding by the select board, to understand what the heck you guys are all up to. And what you need, and vice versa, right? That's where that came from.
Good. All in favor of thanking Barbara McAndrews? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, and really, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
All right.
Back upstairs.
The next item is the Chapin Town Forest boundary discussion. there is some commentary that Kari put in his memo. Kari, you want to give a
Yeah, so this is
representation of
a
that?
new issue to me. Paul Hannon, who many of you know, former Calais resident, retired surveyor, called me about 10 days ago and explained to me his concern about the new property boundary of the Chapin Town Forest. And he just thinks to summarize, he thinks that the boundary was drawn such that the town lost something like 5 acres from the forest. And if going into the parcel that abuts it to the west, which is based on a survey that Aaron Fuller did in what year was that, 22 or?
22 was when it was completed, yes, I started in 2020. So 21, and the town was well aware of the work.
And Juanita, I understand you hired Aaron to do this, for this parcel that was subdivided for your property.
Yeah.
And you all are the Shermans.
Subsequently, yeah.
Devin and Amber.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. So, I got a sort of, I don't know much about surveying, as you can tell. I got a bit of information from Paul, then Aaron happened to be in the office last week. I got Aaron's perspective, understood a little better. He showed me the deed and some of the evidence that he was working from. I then circled back to Paul to make sure, like, I just wanted to understand what the crux of this disagreement was, and it really has to do with how that boundary is interpreted. And if I could summarize, one way of summarizing is that Aaron made clear that with surveys of this nature, there is interpretations and judgments need to be made, and he feels like there may be room for compromise. Paul doesn't feel that way. Paul feels like if someone else had done the survey, they would have drawn the line differently, and the town forest would be 5 acres larger or something like that. So, I feel it's important to bring this issue to you. Paul also brought Neil Maker, who's the chair of the Conservation Commission, up to speed. So Neil's well aware, and Paul made a strong recommendation that the town hire its own surveyor, so that they have an informed third-party opinion. And to be blunt, that if that were needed in a legal action, that would be important evidence. So I did go ahead and ask Becky Gilson for a quote, and partly because she was recommended, she's got a good reputation. Also, she recently did a survey of the Bliss town forest, and which I think turned out very well. So anyway, so that quote is there and available, but that would be my thumbnail sketch of the situation.
I'm just curious, does Paul investigate every subdivision that happens within the town, or how did he come to find this one and have it?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. He told me that he walked the forest at some point with Tom Blatchley, who was here earlier, and they identified the wall and the sugar place, that some of the evidence, the physical markers of the boundary. But I don't know why he was doing that or when.
Yes, if I may speak to the board, Paul is absolutely right. So he's absolutely right. A different surveyor would have called that line in a different location, and my opinion is they would have called it further to the east, which would have even further intruded onto the town forest land. I took a professional liberty and tried to balance the deed for the town calls for 28 acres. If I were to draw the town forest with the excluded land the way it was, the town, there might be 28 acres there, but it's definitely not going to be any further west. There's a very clearly excluded portion that is in contention. So the interesting thing is at one point in time, this part of the town forest was mapped at around 28 acres on the tax maps.
Mr. Hannon went through some pro bono work, allegedly, went out and subsequently the tax map was changed to 34 acres. Seems pretty clear to me that the town has 28 acres in that area. If the town is going to suggest legal action, which I think is absolutely ludicrous, I don't see why that can't be a reasonable discussion between professionals to come up with a solution instead of taking it the route of legal action against tax-paying citizens for land that the town doesn't hold a deed to. Technically, they hold a deed to 28 acres. I now have a renewed interest in revising my map to be unfortunately less favorable to the town, especially with the threat of legal action. My other concern is I believe there may be a conflict of interest with Rebecca Gilson. Mr. Hannon is the one who threatened legal action initially. Rebecca Gilson has been under advisement by Mr. Hannon, and I believe that Mr. Hannon is the one that suggested she be contacted. Further, Town of Morrisville hired Rebecca Gilson to complete some survey work for the town library. I was working next door for the neighbor. She tried calling the line through my client's garage, and I was later found to be more in favor of what I called it. So I would at the very least suggest that the town might consider contacting a different surveyor besides Rebecca Gilson, someone who has not been under the advisement of Mr. Hannon and who will truly offer an unbiased, fair assessment to the town. Mr. Hannon told me to change my map, so the town has 34 acres. And I'll stand by my work all day long.
Well, I appreciate that commentary, Aaron, and I want to be just kind of mindful and respectful. You know, I think the conversation seems to be primarily being had between the collection of professional surveyors who are all going to have the interests of their clients and those who have invited them to the conversation, right? But here's my characterization of the situation, and maybe correct me if I'm off the mark a little bit here, but you know, at some point there was a lot line delineation and the placement of pins, right, for the subdivision, and that by law, I'm pretty sure had to involve a notice to adjoining property owners that would have been impacted by something like that, and that is in part for adjoining landowners to have the opportunity to raise concerns about where those delineations are in a timely manner relative to that delineation, because once you start adding delineations and artifacts and descriptions and deeds, you know, those are artifacts and records that then get interpreted later on, right? So that's the whole point of the whole thing. I assume that those notices to adjoining property owners went out when the subdivision was done?
Absolutely. Not only that, I mean, my research is at the town clerk's office. The town was absolutely on notice that a survey was underway.
And so, you know, I think there's always worth acknowledging a certain amount of complexity with these lots, especially when they're old and they're in rural areas. And I sympathize with the discretionary decision-making that needs to be made in those interpretations. You know, I think again, a characterization here is like, it seems to me like before, I have personally a little issue with making a decision to contract a surveyor for a particular scope of work before we decide what we as a client want the outcome to be as a property owner, right? So we're considering the recommendation to hire somebody to represent the town's interests in this particular discrepancy, right? But until it was an issue that was raised, it wasn't an issue to the town, and professional surveyors aside, like, this is an opportunity for the impacted landowners, I think, to have a dialogue. So if there is a netting out that is any different than what is currently recorded, maybe we should entertain that conversation first with amongst the property owners that are impacted before we commit to giving professional surveyors a scope of work that, and hiring lawyers. Like,
Yeah, I mean, we're not taking any, I mean.
We're definitely not taking any action
It's a very
tonight. No,
slow roll here.
For sure. Yeah.
Like, there's no immediate action coming, yeah, so I just wanted to state that.
The beauty of it is the town is protected because you can have no adverse possession against the sub, right? The town owns what the town owns. I do have a sketch of what some of the differences are. If you guys would like to see it real quick.
Sure.
I mean, just for informational purposes, I know you guys want to get out of here. So do I. These chairs are more uncomfortable than yours.
we had some nice ones. They're upstairs at the moment.
Start over here, I guess, and work over, but I do.
Stand up, I can't wait to stand
Yeah,
up.
right. I'm going to explain it. So
So we have this bullet out here, how does it, how does it,
that's this, so that line is the one I agree. The one you see here.
this one here?
Yep,
This is the 34-acre one.
this is 28.
And so this over here is incorrect then?
Yeah,
Okay. So you drew the 28 acre.
which is deeded out to the town. So in the deed, there was a call for 28 acres and it excluded an area, which I can absolutely identify. There were calls for the distances. This distance, this distance, this distance. So as you can see, if I were to hold those distances, this shaded area, the town will lose. Not lose, but that would be an opinion as to where the line could be. Paul wanted me to draw the line here, but this area on the southwest side of the town forest, right here, is specifically excluded in the deed with these distances, 53.5 rods on the south, 34 rods on the west, and 25 rods on the east. So the other thing is there is some stone wall scattered through here. I did not do a forensic study, but because one of the calls is as the stone wall now exists back in 1808 or 1870 something. I did not do a forensic analysis here. There is a bulldozed or some sort of trail here with some particular wire here. It continues here and heads down along here. I have a sneaking suspicion that right in here, if I were to excavate, manual excavating with a shovel, I have a sneaking suspicion I'm gonna find a stone wall there. The evidence is very strong here. The liberty I took was to push the line further onto my client's land so the town could have 28 acres. So at the end of the day, I took a professional liberty, and in the hierarchy of calls in a deed, one of the things that is very low is the call for acreage. However, I gave that one greater weight in this instance because some of the information, it's not clear whether the line is straight across here or whether it comes here and then where does it go from there. It's not certain where that stone wall existed in 1875 or 6 or whenever it was. But these are very clear.
Okay.
The other item is,
Your client's land is.
right here.
It's fascinating. Okay.
Yeah, so this is Willie.
Okay.
So the other thing is that Chapin Road, and I contacted Mr. Bassage, who was in attendance at the meeting, he used to be part of the Ancient Roads Committee. One of the things that part of the scope for the town would be to determine where Chapin Road is.
Sure.
Yeah, the other, I mean, there is a goat trail through here.
Goat trail, yes.
There is, and I surveyed this piece out, like I measured the whole town's piece, out. There's a steep area here and a steep area, like that steep area kind of goes across like this in here. And I figured it'd be fair to give the town some and my client some, and because it's not usable, right? So I don't think it'd be fair to say my client's line is anywhere down here. Because then they would get all the steep land, when originally, the original call for it, and I see where the confusion comes in with Mr. Hannon, the original deed calls for the line to be right there. And I can prove that he can as well. The thing that I don't know why was not taken into consideration was the deed very, very detail excludes that area. So if I were to draw it with the detailed excluded area, that area that's shaded in would be my client's.
Right in the middle of the forest.
Yeah, this area would be my client's, and then I could very reasonably, if I excavated there and did discover that there was stone wall there, I would have a stronger opinion to say that was my client's as well. So then this area is, if the town wants to hire another surveyor, I would say absolutely, by all means, go ahead and do that. I will revise the map with no problem to put the line where another surveyor would, without taking any professional liberties and trying to be fair.
Well, so can I interject with some? So with all due respect to the archaeological documentation and monumentation, which is something that I learned a lot of not too many years ago, and my mind exploded. You know, I know why, I appreciate why those details are described in such great detail back when we didn't have the technology, and that was your claim to space, and why there is a history of continuing on and respecting that monumentation and carrying it on. But we now live in a world with the technology for making adjustments and that are less confusing. And, you know, I don't see the value in trying to go through the exercise of trying to confirm these things that don't make the situation any less complex, right? So like if there is mutual motivation by all parties to simplify it, this is the point in time to do that, right? Like,
Yeah.
It sounds like that's what got done.
Well, no, not technically, legally, not quite. The thing that would solidify this and stamp it in time is if both parties agreed to the location I surveyed, a quick claim could be issued, and that would stamp it today.
Okay.
This is the thing, it's like, you go, I don't even know if anyone goes to the town forest. Before hiring a surveyor, you might want to put up a sign that says, here's the town forest. But I think the last person walked through there was Mr. Hannon, and before that, it was Henry Chapin back in 1986.
Right.
Bill was going on.
So in your opinion, Aaron, before I'm just kind of weighing in on this again, I'm jumping several steps ahead here, but we have points that are defined and verified, and people can do the research for all of that, but am I off the mark in saying that if all parties agree that this shape could be balanced in a way that nets out and creates straight delineations and
You mean just a straighter line?
yeah, and I think, again, like, to try to give some continuity to the description of a 28-acre lot, whether that's town forest and what the town has a right to. And trying to keep as many parties as whole as possible.
Yeah.
That may require, a movement of a line here, pulling this down and trying to balance these out so that we're not working with the artifacts of so many different parcels that are maybe overlapping with each other.
I think the easiest way to do it would be somewhere down through here, I don't know if you guys have a town forest committee that would wanna go up there and say,
Look at the ground.
yeah, I'm sure you would come up.
Makes sense of where it drops off. Because there's nothing I can do with the land as the job on.
Right.
Right.
But then you lose, then the town is getting more, so that like part of the doctrine of equitability, right? Like who has, what's equitable in the
Let's just
state?
say I'm the only one.
You got a sitter, you might as well be at the party.
This is one more layer of speculation, that if anybody can call me out on, but again, it kind of goes back to the committing of resources in the town hiring, so like, it is in the town's interest to clarify this, right, and resolve any kind of dispute, right? And the hiring of somebody is not in substantial, taxpayer expense. Land has value.
Yes, I
So-
think a lot of money to do this.
Yeah.
Not as much as I should have charged.
So, to your point, to the clients, like there could be, depending on the proposal and anybody's interest, there could be, a certain loss of land and a certain gaining of land to the town forest in achieving something like that, but not something that is like an outlet. So long way around saying that's, that helped, I think, the town rationalize, like, okay, well, it would be worth investing a certain amount of, resources to gaining a few acres here, making things simplified, and setting literal stake in time, saying like this is what the delineation is, and starting to clean some of this up. And if that means, I don't know what that means. I think we have to play with the lines a little bit and have like particular proposals, so we're not like talking about all this kind of stuff in the hypothetical, but I think before we have any conversation about like what our next steps are and how we're hiring and who we're hiring and all that kind of stuff, like I think we just need to just have a conversation between the landowners about like what is everybody really trying to get out of here?
All the contiguous landowners represented here
No.
right now? No.
No, so the line, as it relates to the line in question, yes.
As it relates to the line in question.
And
There's other landowners.
And so,
No, I'm thinking about this, this,
but that's what I'm thinking that like, if we are reaching some consensus amongst the landowners, that there isn't a dispute about what that point is. And whatever the other points are, there would be a giving of land to other adjoining property owners and a gaining of land, presumably, of us and maybe, and I don't know what those values are. I mean, we could
try to rough it out and figure it out with Google Maps or whatever, just to get a better ballpark.
Yeah,
like we're talking about, but I think it would, if we're gonna go through the exercise of hiring somebody to reestablish those lines, and then make a straight line anywhere, I don't see why we wouldn't just try to.
Do that.
A few people at once, if that means inviting one more person to the conversation, just for an initial conversation, that might be worth doing.
So the landowner over here maybe, because the only other, I don't think you need to extend it way over here.
I guess I kind of thought, if you know that this is great, then it's great.
I know that this right here, that area, I know that's yours for a fact. This, I don't know. I can't say that certain. I wouldn't be, that doesn't pass a trade.
This is the line
I feel like we've done as much as we can do on this
Yeah,
tonight.
sure.
We're done
This is-
at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, I know, sorry. So
We finally got to the fun part.
I know, so I'd be interested, I'd be interested to take any recommendations that the town may offer and review it with my clients and, see what, see if there's a mutual agreement that can be reached. I think that would be the best way to deal with it. I went up there this morning and flagged most of it, so if you go up Chapin Road, you'll get some flagging where there's a washout, you take a left up to the washout and you'll find an old fence line and then you can follow it down around.
Well, I don't know that this really involves me anymore, because I sold it to Devin and Amber. But I think compromise is a good thing, but I also want to point out, he did a lot of research. And I think the research he did was necessary, because he had to go all the way back to the beginning, to the original
Lotting plan.
lots.
1786, yeah, and that's another thing, the surveyor would have to go back to 1786, they'd have to reestablish the original lot, they would have to. And then there's an interesting piece in the town forest that's not currently disputed, that might become disputed on both sides of the, road, that's why I took a professional, my job is to keep people out of work, and I figured the way to do that would be, no one at the town cared in 2022. I put it so there were 28 acres, and there's also, the way I drew it, there's a 2015 V-Trans map that shows a similar configuration, which means at some point in time, somebody had some local knowledge that could be a possibility, but I'd be more than happy to, you have my email address, Kari, so, and I have their email address, I could be a liaison between you two, and, hey. He's already ready to, call for rights, which, as a surveyor, I don't like to say, go ahead and do that, but there's a steep area that's not really useful. I don't know if it's in anyone's benefit to have it, probably less of a liability, in all honesty, if you guys.
And let me say that if money were not an object, I had thought about donating that to the town forest. But, gotta live, money.
Money is not, it's always land. Well, I think, I appreciate everybody's input.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
time
thank you.
and dialogue.
And also waiting. for
And
your-
waiting,
Yeah.
Really.
it was not intentional, but at the end.
I actually really enjoyed the meeting, you guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Good.
Nice to see such a well-run town, nice work.
Thanks for coming and talking to us. Yeah, appreciate it.
Well, let me speak now.
I do. I just like to hear myself speak so much when
I wanted to suggest that, they could have a separate group for downstairs, because it just makes sense.
Yeah.
They need to communicate with each other, but it's different.
One thing I was thinking of when Mr. Blatchley was here and the other trail representatives is there are no trails in that town forest. They might be a good group to go look
Oh,
at.
that,
There's been a lot of conversation in that general vicinity about a number of different things. That's
Well-
kind of exciting. I think if the rest of the board is comfortable with it, like, I love this stuff. And
Really?
no. I'm happy to like work with Kari and have a couple more conversations, outside of select board meetings, so that maybe we can just kind of just play through this a little bit more. I don't think that there is anything immediate or urgent that is pushing anybody in a particular direction to take any particular action, right? So like, let's, if we're going to have the exercise of having these conversations, like, let's just make sure that we're what everybody's expectations are before we do anything. And I think that'd be a fun conversation to work through, see what everybody needs to get out of it.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to facilitate the map itself, in order for you guys to reach that agreement. There was no ill will there. I was only trying to be as fair as I possibly could, and I don't feel like it would have been fair to the town if I pushed the line further east. And in all honesty, I think that the evidence is very strong as well, and I don't. Yeah, as a fifth generation Vermonter, I find the value in the town forests to be quite significant. So I think it's a resource worth protecting, and by all means, I would love to see what another unbiased.
Yeah.
Unbiased. Stick with the first one. Unbiased surveyor thinks of the take. I believe there might be a bit of a conflict of interest with Miss Gilson is all. I think she's a wonderful surveyor, it's just not in that area. And I do understand the town stops on it as well, and that may not be necessary, but.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessary, it is interesting as it is, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
So let's just think.
I think if we do decide between us, all of us, what we want to do, someone has to go set some pins, so we can pay somebody to do that.
For sure.
Eventually.
Yep.
and a big sign that says town.
Well, what I'm suggesting is I could set the pins if you guys figure out, if you guys can come to an agreement. So they take the expense of the survey and you guys take the expense of the legal stuff, like a deed.
Let's have a different conversation. All right. Yeah, we'll work through what that looks like. But I think I do appreciate the conversation. Thank you. Let's just keep the conversation. Time.
Do you have anything more?
Can we? Yeah. So, I want to, Tegan, oh man, you've been hanging on for so long, so patiently, poor Tegan. I was gonna propose, just do like quick reports, but if nobody's feeling strongly about, reports, maybe table them. Sounds like Kari's willing to table his, and then we can just move to the highway department one. Tegan?
First of all, I have a cold.
Sorry.
I don't actually have anything significant to report. The election is next week. Tell your friends and neighbors to vote at the town office, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Tuesday. Other than that, I've just been working on projects around the town office. Things are going smoothly. Knock on wood.
Thanks, Tegan.
Thank you, Tegan.
Right now, sorry, point of clarification. The board's not gonna take any further action at this moment.
No.
Thank you very much.
Other than we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Highway department, that's only 15 minutes behind schedule, right? Half an hour? No, it says 8:45. Highway
It's
department.
9:15.
9:10.
My stomach says.
My watch is 5 minutes slow again. All right, highway department, labor negotiations. It will be, yep, and then I imagine this is just an update on the status and review of kind of where we stand, so there's not a proposed action for this, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, so we'll likely just be coming out of executive session and adjourning, so no need to, I guess, record that. We'll provide notes on that. Thank you, everyone. So the next item is to entertain a motion to enter executive session under 1 VSA 313(1)B related to confidential labor relations negotiations.
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.